Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight's guest, Nigel Watson. He's the author of Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited, High Strangeness, British UFO Cases. A little put off here. My Facebook Live wasn't going live. I had to reset it. Then I set it to the wrong one just now, and I'm trying to get it all shared out. But yeah, something went wrong with the Facebook live stream. It is up now, though. If any of you are looking for it, I do have it. It's shared out. I am so sorry. I don't know what happened there. But we are live. We are live tonight. And our guest, Nigel Watson, like I said, we're going to talk about British UFO cases. Not just any UFO cases, but ones of high strangeness. Ones a lot of UFO investigators might just look away from because it doesn't fit their perspective of what they think or theories are of UFOs. Nigel takes a different approach on this, and this is part of the Paranormal Perspective series from 6 books that we've had a number of guests on tonight, and this is another book in that series, Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited by Nigel Watson. This is a rewrite of a book he wrote years ago and added new stuff too, and we're going to get in his first time on the show. Of course, lots of weird in the World Wide Web of weird as well. There's lots of strangeness, and we'll get to it. I mean, the world's just shaking and rolling right now. Earthquakes and nuclear wars and Matt Rife buying the Annabelle doll, all that stuff. We're going to get all that good stuff. And we'll take your phone calls later in the show. Hopefully everything's streaming right now. I'm watching, and 3 people watching on Facebook, I think. I don't know what screwed that up. But if you're just joining us, we're all here. We are live. Let's get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup, and the other place I'm not live right now that I should be, and I'll just go live there now. If you're just hearing us now live on the Paranormal Soup radio network, sorry, you missed the whole intro. Our guest tonight is Nigel Watson. Like I said, he'll join us after the first commercial break. Had a whole kerfuffle here where it wasn't going live on Facebook, so then I didn't go live on the radio, internet radio, Talkstream Live. We're on there. I'm sure all these private messages are about that from Jamie. Is there a Facebook error? It looks fixed. I don't think we are on Facebook now. It looks back. Yeah, that was me. Oh, that was a great. See, Jamie, my beautiful co-host, you jinxed it. You jinxed it. I love you, but you jinxed it. You did right before the show.
I said we wouldn't have Wi-Fi.
It was enough. Any mention of technical problems. Just a whiff of it. It's like Lord Voldemort. You mention it, it happens. But here we are. We are live next Friday. Friday. Jeez. Next Sunday. I don't think we're going to have a show. I have to work tomorrow as it is. Next Monday, I'll have to work too, and I think early. So I don't have a guest scheduled for next Sunday. So I don't know if we'll have a show. If we do, it'll be a short one, no guest. We'll see. I got to see what'll happen during the week if I get time to prep to do a no guest, open lines kind of show. And have some Worldwide Weird maybe ready. We'll see. But I got a busy week. Been really busy this summer. I've only done a couple things for the YouTube channel members, and I feel bad. We're going to do more. I promise. I swear. We're going to get to it. It's been a very busy summer. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. But we do have a lot of weird happening just in the last several days. And I'm sure if we don't come back next Sunday, we're going to have a whole plethora of weird stories to go sift through in that time. That's just how it's been rolling. But let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd just get this out of the way. Let's just talk about it now, because I see everybody in the paranormal ghost world at least, that side of the things, talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren's home and the Annabelle doll all being sold, not to Douche Baggins, not to Zach Baggins, sorry, but to, I barely know who this guy is. I've heard of him, whatever. Matt Rife, some obnoxious comedian, and another guy I've never heard of, Elton Castee. Buy Ed and Lorraine's home, complete with Annabelle doll. Yeah, well. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network, we are a webcast streaming out live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Luckily, now on back to Facebook after I don't know what happened. But if you want to, if you're listening on the Paranormal Radio app, Talkstream Live, whatever, I'm messing everything up. We are a webcast, so if you want to come watch, or I'll narrate as best as possible. All right, let me go ahead and get this first article up here. Do you even know who the other guy is? I have no idea. I'm so culturally out of it. The Elton Castee, or is that his name? Cased? I don't know how you say his name.
I'm more familiar with the Matt.
All right. Well, this is from Deadline. If there was ever any truth to the supernatural lore around Ed and Lorraine Warren's paranormal investigation, the new guardians of their Connecticut museum have their work cut out for them. Comedian Matt Rife and TikTok ghost hunter Elton Castee announced that they TikTok, that's why I don't know him. Announced that they purchased the Monroe, Connecticut home of the Warrens, who inspired Warner Brothers' The Conjuring franchise, which includes the Warrens Occult Museum and supposedly possessed doll behind the Annabelle films. Well, I thought it was missing. That's just so many comments on this. I thought the doll was missing. Remember all that? Insane announcement Rife phrased in an Instagram post. I've officially purchased Ed and Lorraine Warren's home and Occult Museum, including being the legal guardian of at least its next 5 years of the entire haunted collection, including the Annabelle doll, with my good friend Elton Castee. So 5 years, is it like a lease then? Not really buying it? If you know me, you know I'm obsessed with the paranormal and all things haunted. You also may know the Conjuring films are my favorite scary movies of all time, he continued. So I'm incredibly honored to have taken over one of the most promising properties in the paranormal history. Ed and Lorraine Warren's arguably put demonology and paranormal into the mainstream, are the very heart of some of the most famous haunted stories of all time, Conjuring House, Amityville Horror, etc. Rife noted that he and Case plan to open the house for overnight stays and museum tours so you yourself can experience and learn all the haunted history surrounding an amazing place. And, of course, I saw a lot of these. I did not cover last week, really, the Dan Riviera passing with that. I don't know. I don't know what happened with him. It's sad, and I didn't feel like making much of it. besides that, we lost somebody. I don't know if it's connected to Annabelle or anything, but I'm sure it helped with the price tag on the sale on this thing. I wonder what that sale is. And he said for 5 years. Is that a lease or something? Where was Zach Baggins on this? Was he out trying to bid war on this? I swear to God he was.
Had to.
I always said if I had a lot of money and I was obnoxiously rich, I would buy paranormal things. I don't know if I'd buy this. I don't know if I'd buy Lorraine's. And it's not out of fear of Annabelle or anything. I just don't know. I don't know. There'd be others. I wouldn't actually be interested in Annabelle. I'd be interested in a lot of the other stuff that nobody hardly knows about. I'd like to go through their archives. That's what I'd be interested in.
The stuff that they don't really talk about.
Yeah, I would be interested to go through all that. All right, we'll move on. Yeah, right. Remove. I am so not with it tonight. There we go. Okay. All right. This next one's a weird one. I don't know what to make of this, but let me get the file up here from the article from the Metro. I got the Unexplained Mystery article shorter, but mystery as man dies on U.S. flight but then completely disappears. And this is the Unexplained Mystery shorter version of the article. According to reports, a man who had not been named suffered a severe medical emergency while on a Turkish Airlines flight from Istanbul to the United States on July 13th. Sadly, the 83-year-old died as a result, but it is what happened next that would remain the most perplexing thing about the incident. The decision had been made not to cut the flight short, but to continue on to Chicago O'Hare Airport, which had suitable medical facilities to deal with the situation. I mean, people die on planes. It happens. It's not a complete abnormality to these guys. They've been doing it, for decades and decades. They know what to do when this happens. When the plane landed, however, nobody could find the man's body anywhere. Turkish Airlines had claimed that upon landing, the body had been transferred to a different flight to be taken to San Francisco, but there was no documentation to confirm such a transfer had ever happened, and the medical examiner's office in San Francisco never received the body either. As things stand, nobody seems to know what happened to it. Well, I wonder what his family says. Nothing in these articles mentions what the family's saying. Like, where's the body? And a lot of these things have, chain of custody documents they have to be signed off.
Exactly.
They just don't throw that body on that plane there and gets on the wrong plane or something.
No.
There's like a whole chain of custody and legal documents have to go on when you're transporting a body. So this is highly irregular.
On an air flight, there's rules from in the sky till they hit the ground, and
it seems very highly irregular.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I was just talking when I was doing my flight a couple weeks ago to Seattle. Well, I was nervous about flying. I'd never been nervous about flying, but I have been because I see the cracks in civilization. I see the cracks in infrastructures and society. In an airport that usually would deal with a body and getting it to the right destination now lost it like your luggage. Things are falling apart. That might be a sign. Them losing a body. They shouldn't. I don't know.
And your life is in the hands of 21-year-old stewardesses given a roll of duct tape and maybe some zip ties to protect you.
I never saw a 21-year-old stewardess in the 4 flights I had. They all looked very seasoned.
Really?
Stewardesses. Because the other young people I saw were the ones on the ground, the ones doing the light thing.
Uh-huh.
I see this one girl just kind of half dazed out, just twirling her things, waiting, and the other girl kind of I can't wait to go home. You probably have the most important job here. Wake up, people. Sorry, my paranoia. Let's move on.
You had one job.
In case I have somebody listening now that has a flight soon, and I'm just spreading my paranoia to them, I should just stop. You're fine. You'll be fine. Take your flight. I enjoy flying. I got the window seat to look out, but I get paranoid about it because, like I said, I see the cracks in the matrix. The things are falling apart,
I never used to care.
Yeah. All right. This next one should be a video. This is, I think, this one's going to be Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, who I love. Let me pull that up, and then I got to pause it.
Creature in it.
This is from their YouTube channel here. This is interesting. You don't get a lot of good videos sometimes. These guys get some good ones, and this one's interesting. Remarkable video filmed from Tim Bindle from Coast to Coast. And Sierra Nevada Mountains shows what appears to be a Bigfoot dashing through some woods before stopping to watch the unknowing witness who inadvertently filmed it. The intriguing footage was sent to the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization research group by a man named Bill, who explained that the strange scene was captured in the past May in Coyote Ridge, California. While filming his dogs playing in the snow, one of the pooches seems to have spotted something unusual in nearby woods that went unnoticed noticed by him until he later looked at the video and was stunned by what he saw. What captured the dog's attention was a large bipedal figure that swiftly moved behind the tree line until it stopped in the area with a thick amount of brush. An unknowing Bill subsequently continued filming his family and animals with what may have been a Bigfoot watching them from a distance behind the cover provided by the trees. An enhanced version of the video featured above provides a better look at the mystery, and that's what he does. He zooms in. I'm going to mute it, though, because I don't know. I don't think he has him using here, but just in case. But this is like the footage here. You see it. And he mentions in here on the RMSO or Rocky Mountain Sasquatch YouTube that he has kind of like this cone head. Reminds me of a Land of the Lost, like the little guy in Land of the Lost. But he's not noticing it in the video. Like he's paying attention to his dog. His dog seems to though. His dog is not frightened by it though. The dog doesn't show any like signs of like I'm frightened by whatever's there. And he's like okay, but he does seem to notice it. He stops, he looks right over, and this thing just runs on by. Or like Fuzzball. You remember the old TV movie? It was a TV movie called Fuzzball. I don't know what that is. It's not a Bigfoot, though. It's a Littlefoot, I think. But I think this is really interesting, though. I mean,
Looks like he's trying to find a tree to go behind. Oh.
The way it runs is really weird. And they talk about this. RMSO talks about this, that the movement seems really weird. It wouldn't be what you would expect if it was somebody in a suit running, and I agree. And it kind of has this waddle to it. It's really weird.
Unless someone was about to have an accident in the suit, and they're like running like, oh no, oh no, oh no.
That's hilarious. Never thought of that. Never occurred that they're pinching their cheeks while they're running. Now that's going to be in my mind every time I look at this video. But it's interesting. It's something weird.
Where do we go?
Yeah.
I know I'm being filmed right now. Where do I go?
It's not what I would expect from like anybody trying to hoax it. It's like they did go for the big Bigfoot, not the little guy with the cone head. I don't know. It's weird looking.
Maybe they thought they would edit it after.
I don't know. But our Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization on YouTube, this is where they got a probably 4 or 5 minute video analyzing this. You should check it out. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, definitely check that one out. All right. Next up. Oh, ghost sighting in India. Gonna remove this. So we got another school ghost sighting deal going on. All right. This one in India. Ghost sighting sends several Indian high school students to the hospital. Several high school students in India wound up being hospitalized after encountering what they claimed was a terrifying ghost. According to a local media report, a weird incident occurred in the community of Mohankara last week when a boy visited the bathroom and saw what he later described as a dark, headless human figure running back to his classroom. Sorry, I'm totally butchering this. He saw a dark, headless human figure. Running back to his classroom in fright, the youngster promptly fainted before being able to share what he had just seen. As his teachers tended to the downed boy, a trio of girls ventured to the bathroom where they also observed an eerie interloper, and they sent them similarly fleeing from the scene. Hysterical over the suspected ghost, the unsettled youngsters also fainted from the experience. Concerned administrators promptly transported the 4 students to a nearby hospital. Curious cases led to the calls for the bathroom, which is an outbuilding on their property, to be demolished, as the location has long been rumored to be haunted. And there's a video, I'm not playing it, of the hospital, and these kids there. This is one of the young girls. And they seem pretty distraught. I mean, people are like, oh, they're just trying to get out of class or school. I don't know. I think there's better ways. This is an outhouse in India. They didn't have it connected to the school, and the rumors of this thing being haunted. This kid said he saw a headless body form, and I'm saying fainting
about these ones.
It's interesting. We'll talk about it with Nigel Watson on Portraits of an Alien Encounter. He really covers these cases where it's very similar to these kind of things, where ufologists really don't want to look at certain things that happen, experiences that are more paranormal, and they want to just focus on their aliens from space, not interdimensional. It's kind of like around the John Keel more theory approach, which I've always been a big John Keel fan. We'll get into that tonight, but these kind of stories interest me because that's what it reminds me of. All right, let's move on. We're going to run out of time. I'm already running behind here. We'll make this one quick. I thought this was interesting. Maybe not great for our understanding of our past as a humanization, but it might explain a lot about humans. Is that they discovered archaic human species ate its own. Yeah, it ate its young. Decapitation of a child 850,000 years ago reveals new evidence of cannibalization in Atapacura. Or you say that? Evidence of human cannibalism has been found in fossilized bones dating back to 850,000 years. Remarkable discovery, which was made by archaeologists working at Grandolonian Cave in Atapacura, I probably butchered all that, northern Spain, shows evidence of human species eating its own kind. Bones belong to a child aged between 2 and 4 and show clear cuts, marks made by sharp instruments, marks that closely resemble those found on the remains of animals butchered for food. It suggests that the species Homo antecessor not only practiced cannibalism, but did so on its own young. Well, maybe it wasn't their own young. Maybe it was somebody else's young. Either way, gross. Sorry. But, who knows what they were going through, or they were trying to survive, and, it came down to, survival of the fittest. I don't know. But have we progressed very far since then? Have we come as any better as human civilization, or not? Are we eating our own? Some say yes, we're still eating.
Well, if Gates has...
Yeah. Let's not. Oh, Voldemort now. You're just really pushing them up.
The alkaline, water burials in our water system.
Yeah, where they want to liquefy us and feed us to each other. Yeah. Well, we haven't gone much farther. When we're going to get into aliens and experiences. Minnesota man murders his neighbor who he thought was an alien.
Oh no.
Incident began last week when a witness who presumably lived at the man's home recalled being woken up in the middle of the night by the suspect to be told that their neighbor, a 7-year-old woman, was in fact an alien, and that a spaceship was coming to take them away. The man reportedly called the neighbor up and asked her to come around to help him with something. When she arrived, she shot her 7 times with a firearm. Somehow she was able to make it back to her house while the first responders were initially able to ask her what happened. She sadly succumbed to her wounds and died shortly afterwards. The suspect was later apprehended after breaking into a nearby house. Exactly why the man had believed that his neighbor was an alien is unclear, but it would be reasonable to assume that he was either experiencing mental health problems or was under the influence of drugs. Whatever the case, the fear of being carried away in a spaceship prompted him to commit murder. We've had a number of these stories lately. Also Bigfoot, he's been blamed too. But yeah, it seems a lot of people turning to aliens as an excuse to murder somebody else. So we have not come much farther than eating our own. Now we just have more inventive ways, killing each other. And blaming it on aliens or Bigfoot.
Tripping, thinking people are robots. Are you real? Are you AI? Or what are you, man? People that are really out there.
Yeah. This last one, I have an article, but it's not what I really want to talk about. It's my speculation on maybe what's going on. Let's move this one from the studio and pull this last one up here. All right, so we got earthquakes all over the place. My wife fears of all the animals leaving Yellowstone and that going off, and we got all these earthquake activity. But then recently in the news this week was the 8.8 earthquake that rattled in Russia. And it turns out the Kamchatka, how you say it, submarine bases there was supposed to be some kind of secret base, not so secret, I guess. And this earthquake might have damaged some of their nuclear submarines right around the time a certain president is having a tweet war with another former president of Russia, and then sends our nuclear subs there, and everything's getting really out of control and out of hand. And then this earthquake suddenly seems to happen. Some people are speculating, could this have been an earthquake weapon? What did Trump say? He said, we have unimaginable weapons. Things you can believe.
Yeah, but they're hitting California, too, up in that southern region. And with all the volcanoes, and it being so spread out, I think it goes deeper than that. Not saying
Well,
they're not going to throw that in,
Bro,
but
that's a thing. I mean, you have these stories on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and these videos of people having tremors and sounds under the ground. Have you seen all those? There's been a ton of different ones on those. Are they
New York
digging
and New
tunnels in
Jersey.
New York? Yeah. I mean, if it was true, they had some kind of technology to use an earthquake as a weapon towards, like, say, a Russian submarine base, I'd be highly concerned about the consequences of the after effects of that.
like the volcano erupting.
Right. What kind of consequences are we getting from this? I don't know. We don't know if that's what's happening, and maybe not. It's just coincidental that it ends up hitting a nuclear submarine base at the same time we're, like, totally provoking. And sorry, we are. We need. I know everybody right now. This is the mindset of lead with a big hammer or whatever when they call it, or madman approach. The madman approach, is that what it is? I think we need to pull back on the madman approach. I think we need a diplomatic approach. Just saying, we need a diplomatic approach. And if you do have an earthquake weapon, please don't use it. We need diplomacy, not like tweets and angry words and dumb. I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
About 18 HARP type stations set up all around the world in different locations so they can hit weather, anything, any angle they want. Those same exact things can help control hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes.
And would we use it as a weapon? Damn sure we will.
Totally
and
use
have.
As a weapon. They're being used as weapons.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's the perfect weapon. Weather weapons, earthquake weapons could be like, well, I don't know how that happened.
Now they made that like 5 mile long, whatever, what was that, 500 whatever mile long lightning bolt that lasted.
Yeah. And then now every natural disaster happens in America is now people wondering if our own government's doing it to help real estate investment.
Well, yeah.
Like to buy up real estate from people.
And narrative for climate crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's bull. I'm not saying that we don't have some crime problems. We do, but a lot of the blame on climate for a lot of these things does not add up whatsoever. No, that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird.
It's coming down.
Let's hope cooler heads prevail in the world. I'm not just Trump out there. I'm saying there's a lot of idiots, not just him, that are out there provoking things, making it worse. A lot of people, talking heads in the media, warmongers and all that kind of crap going on. Like we need actual diplomacy, and we should look at history, like the Cuban Missile Crisis and how we avoided that. And let's not get to that point. I'm just saying. And if we have earthquake weapons, let's please not use them. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. We're going to go to commercial break. Our guest tonight is Nigel Watson, author of Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited, High Strangeness British UFO Cases. And these are not just your normal UFO cases we're going to be getting into. It really looks at all the perspectives of these experiences. And as somebody who's done these interviews now for 10 years and talked to UFO witnesses and abductees, there are things they don't always tell because, it's not part of the normal patagram of what we expect from a UFO case. And I really am enjoying this book. I'm not finished it yet, about 120 pages in to the book, but I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait to talk to Nigel after this short commercial break.
You were brought here for one purpose, necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please.
And death to the living. Necromancy. Starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3-week weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got a medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now, the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Nigel Watson. Nigel has researched and investigated historical and contemporary reports of UFO sightings since the 1970s. He writes a monthly column in Saucers of the Damned about UFOs of Fortean Times and regularly writes book reviews for the Pelicanist blogspot. He has regularly contributed to the Magonia, I don't know how to say that right, all about space Starburst, Aquila, History Today, Fate, Flying Saucer Review, UFO Brigantia, I butchered that too. Northern UFO News, The Unexplained, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, and Outer Limits Magazine. He's contributed to the Darklore anthology series and several books edited by the late Timothy Green Beckley. For the reliability of UFO witnesses' testimony, edited by V.J. Ballester-Olmos and Richard W. Heiden, who he contributed a chapter on the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case. He has a degree in film and literature from the University of Warwick and a degree in psychology from Open University. Nigel works as a copywriter in London and now lives in Plymouth, UK. He is the author of the book I've just been reading the last couple days. I'm about 120 pages in, and I'm loving it. Is Portraits of an Alien Encounter Revisited. High Strangeness British UFO Cases. We're going to get in tonight to the themes that, you know, don't fit in the nice boxes of the ufology of what people expect an experience to be, and that's what I really love about this book. And we're going to get into some of these cases tonight. And I'd love to hear about your own experiences, because I know some of you out there have them when it comes to extraterrestrial experiences or paranormal experiences. Call in if anything rings a bell that we're talking about tonight. Later in the show, we'll open up the phone lines. You can join this conversation. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. right, and Nigel's joining us all the way across the pond in the UK early morning time, and we didn't get to do a sound check, so hopefully everything's working right. How you doing tonight, Nigel?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Oh, you sound good. You look good. I'm glad for early in the morning.
Yeah, I'm still awake. Just about.
Well, I've been really, like I said, I haven't finished the book, but I've been really enjoying it. I think I'm like 120 pages in.
Right.
And I'm really, you referenced John Keel in this quite a few times already, I've seen. And I'm a big John Keel. I'm a big John Keel fan because he looked at things in a way that, like, I guess what, kind of the point I think you're getting at in this book, as I'm seeing so far, is, there's different perspectives people can go into these UFO investigations, right? Be it they believe it under their perspective, it's an ET, an altered dimensional being, or a hoax, or a government psyop, or, people go in with their own perspectives.
Yeah, I think John Keel was particularly influential on European ufologists and people in Britain as well. And that's why I started kind of researching these kind of cases. Mainly I interviewed people about lights in the sky and that sort of thing. But by the late 1970s, I was sort of passed on different reports from people who had high strangeness experiences, which kind of fitted in with John Keel's theories. In fact, he included paranormal experiences and all sorts of odd things that people who supported the ETH theory censored out of their accounts. And I think Keel made us aware that people don't just see a UFO, they often have lots of other experiences, often from childhood. And I've found with my own research that seems to be the case. But I think with Keel, he kind of rebranded the subject. He gave the title of, rather than aliens, ultra-terrestrials. And instead of traveling in spaceships, he felt they were able to move through the super spectrum and to visit us from a sort of parallel world. So in a way, I think he kind of rebranded it, and I don't know whether it was complete. I think he might have been a bit tongue-in-cheek, really, but he did revolutionize the subject, and I think it's important. And also, I think he mentions aliens and alien contact to have a kind of trickster element to it. And in a way, I think John Keel himself is a bit of a trickster. He was a good journalist who could tell a good story.
Yeah.
And, I think it's inspirational because he's very readable and he did open up things for other people to investigate. So I think from that angle, it's very important. And I think it made us think more about the social context of sightings and the culture people lived in, because he spoke about phantom airships and mystery aircraft. So he showed that UFOs and things seen in the sky weren't just something that occurred after Kenneth Arnold reported seeing flying saucers. Yeah, but they'd been termed Foo Fighters or ghost rockets, in previous years prior to the flying saucer scare.
For Gemma there in the chat room, not John. I think you're thinking of somebody else, not John Keel from like the 1960s. Point Pleasant Mothman being the most famous case he was involved with. I think you're thinking of 007 himself, the original 007. The John D. I have a feeling that's who you're thinking about. I don't know. But anyways, off topic. I'm a big fan of John Keel because I'm going to be in a TV show about my encounter I had with a shadow person, is what you want to call it. or some people would call it a demon. I don't know. I encountered something to this day. I'm not going to get into all of it, but is very in the realm of John Keel, the kind of the experience I had. And I really related to the Mothman prophecies when I read the original John Keel, not the movie with Richard Gere. Dear God, let's not even talk about that. I really wish they would redo it. Really wish they would go back and do like a Mothman prophecy, like the book.
Yeah.
Not like what that they did. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Just the same thing with things like Travis Walton. I would love to see. Fire in the Sky is a great movie, but it's nothing like what the book is. Anyways, I'm a big fan of his because John Keel looked in this perspective of this kind of ultra-terrestrial. Because what I dealt with is, I don't quantify as a demon or an alien, but it was something ultra-terrestrial, something from a dimension that's just out of sight of ours. So I really related to John Keel and a lot of the stories that he told and experiences. But I felt like he looked at a broader perspective of these experiences than a lot of UFOologists do, like us who have the perspective it's only an alien from another planet. At least in the early days of this.
Yeah, I think it was good that he spoke about the mystery airships seen in the United States in 1896 and 97.
Aurora, Texas.
Yeah, that was fantastic because newspapers reported people not only seeing cigar ship craft in the sky and lights in the sky, but they also reported encountering the crew of these craft. And you'd often get stories in the newspaper of people saying they went for a country walk and came across a landed craft. And the inventor and crew of a craft would show them around and tell them about this marvelous invention that they were going to make public very soon, but it would revolutionize air travel. And these are very much like close encounters of a third kind that we have today. The interesting thing is most of these airship crew were sort of humanoid, and some of them were, just supposed to be normal people, and others were of like Grecian godlike appearance, or even
Well, I mentioned Aurora, Texas, and late Jim Mars really was the big journalist who investigated that. And that was they buried a body of a humanoid creature that was in the ship. That's the legend, the ufological mythology, whatever. And there was a gravesite. We know where the graveyard is, but then the gravesite got dug up, missing. Something happened. Who knows? But that was what 1890s, I think. That was late 1800s when that happened.
Yeah. And I think the media also had a big influence there. I think that spread stories around and encouraged people to tell more stories. I'm not sure how valid a lot of these sightings or stories were, because it was at a time when journalism was quite adventurous and not too keen on facts, really. But it's just fascinating how you can compare it with, say, the contactees of the 1950s who told similar stories, but instead of miraculous inventors, it was miraculous aliens. And they actually flew in flying saucers and mainly humanoid type people who gave them a philosophy about being anti-atomic warfare and to preserve the climate and address all the concerns that generally seem to be something the contactees themselves were worried about. They kind of reflected their own personal philosophy. But by saying that the aliens told them this, it gave them the authority to tell other people that, this isn't my philosophy. This is a philosophy that I'm channeling to you from, aliens. And a lot of people...
They work for major religions. Why not for ufology, right? I mean, I'm not saying people made stuff up, but you're talking about like the kind of the George Adamski kind of movement of the 50s and the Space Brothers. And there's some valuable experiences. I don't think we should just, some ufologists totally write off the George Adamski thing and don't want to look at it at all. Just like Billy Meyer and others. There's definite issues. There's issues. There's definitely debunking, and there's things we should not just, plainly say, I get, it was a Space Brothers time. But there's interesting aspect of it. I mean, look what the FBI, they were having such an impact on society in the 50s that the FBI were putting agents in these conventions. Because they were worried about the message of communism and anti-nuclear.
Yeah, so these were quite subversive characters in the eyes of the FBI, because we were telling stories about, cashless societies and things where people would share everything without money, or capitalism, which was downright communism, really.
Yeah. I mean, think about 1950 CIA guys, America, and they're hearing this, sounds like a commie, I mean, even if we didn't have the Freedom of Information Acts to know that they did this, we would know that they did this. They were prime targets for something like this.
Yeah, I think another thing is that contactees were useful in that they got newspaper headlines and obtained a lot of ridicule. So if anyone did, anyone more respectable reported a UFO encounter, they'd just be laughed at because they'd be just lumped in with the contactees. And I think a lot of organizations in America, like NICAP and APRO, wanted to kind of distance themselves from the contactees. But another issue they had to deal with was the story of like Betty and Barney Hill, which was one of the first well-known abduction cases. And they found it very hard to come to terms with that because they just wanted to get the government to acknowledge that there were just, nuts and bolts spacecraft in our atmosphere, and to address stories where people said they'd actually met the crew of these flying saucers was a bit of a step too far for some people. And it did take several years before the Betty and Barney Hill story became mainstream. It was only with John Fuller and his journalistic investigation that really brought it to light. Otherwise, the story would have probably just got buried in old UFO magazines.
When you say brought to light, too, you mean it's brought to light within the UFO community. But in general terms of the mass consciousness, it's there, but it's not. Nowadays, we're talking in Congress about UAPs. I love how they returned it. We can talk about that tonight. I believe that's the way of controlling the conversation. But we're talking about them. But guess what? It's like they have not yet. Now they're in that phase of talking about, but they yet don't want to take that step to talk about the abduction experiences.
We're almost back where we started. Really,
right. That's what I feel like.
It's like Donald Keyhole was a prominent ufologist, and he was always trying to rattle the cage of the government to disclose what they believed, and I think he did actually get to have some congressional hearings, and I think they spent a couple of days with different UFO experts and people like Carl Sagan to talk about UFOs. But the thing is, it didn't really get much beyond that, and I think the problem with pressing government is that if they don't get anything, it's very difficult to move on from there. And then events occur like that distract the government. The government's got lots of other things to deal with than to deal with flying saucers, really. And people then would complain, why are you spending all this time on flying saucers when you should be sorting out unemployment or.
I get that argument. Yeah, but I can make a lot of other arguments about things that they spend their time on besides flying saucers and our economy and loss of jobs here, or probably in your government in the UK, that they waste time on. You know, a lot of other things they waste time on. So but I'm very much interested in both ufology and let's get people jobs and not like totally crash the dollar here in the U.S. or the U.K. You know, but I think it's an important topic. But like you said, do you trust your government here in America? I mean, we just recently had the whole Epstein thing. You know, totally people. I think there's a lot of lack of trust going on. As there rightfully should be and has always been. For me, it's the same. I just don't trust the government.
Yeah. I think it's tough as well that if you want to get total disclosure, it's difficult pinning it down to just one government source. The government is composed of lots of different agencies, and they don't always speak to each other. So, say the FBI releases all of its files. It doesn't mean to say other agencies would follow suit, or if they do, you know, is it selective information? So it's never very satisfactory. The British government has released what they say are all their UFO files, but it never pleases everyone, and sometimes new files are found because different agencies have hung on to documents. A lot of UFO documents that the Ministry of Defence had were actually destroyed up to I think the 1960s on a routine basis because they had nowhere to put it and they didn't think it was relevant. And perhaps that, you know, there might still be copies of that documentation lurking about in some files, but I suppose it wasn't a priority to keep that.
I'm sure they were happy to trash a lot of it, honestly.
And
I mean, you had Nick Pope there for a long time, you know, being an advocate in Britain for UFO disclosure. Some people don't trust him, some people do trust him, and he's been, you know, somebody that has been trying to get, I guess, disclosure. But then again, he worked for the government. You know, I mean, it's like the biggest person I can think of in that area also worked for the government.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because a lot of ex-CIA people are fronting UFO conferences, writing books, and doing TV series, and yet you'd think if you have this greatest secret that would revolutionize human thinking, why would you do a TV series about it? Why not, you know, get a big scientific get together? But the problem is, there's never any physical proof to show people. Even now, all they can do is say we've got these whistleblowers, and then when that whistleblower fails, say, oh, we've got a better whistleblower, and then it goes on like that. It's like Russian dolls, really, and it's very frustrating to pin that down. And it also another factor is what UFOs are you actually studying? Are you actually studying UFOs to find extraterrestrial objects coming into our atmosphere, a bit like Avi Loeb's interstellar object?
Right. Oh, yeah. We've covered that on the World Wide Web of Weird, and I don't know how to feel about Avi Loeb. He seems to be behind a lot of the latest major headlines on this, and he seems to. I mean, with the pyramid, he got involved, I think, even in the pyramid scan thing, even though he wasn't a direct involvement in it. You know, we had the spherical things on the ocean floor that some say are just pollution. And he says they're alien molecules. And then you have him saying this is an interstellar object, an alien ship coming to Earth. You know, is it the boy who cried wolf? I don't know. I mean, he's a Harvard professor. He has the credentials, but I mean, I don't know.
I think it's somebody who likes throwing forward a lot of speculation, really. And it's because he's a Harvard professor, people take notice of it. But also, like a lot of his talk of these interstellar objects, there's a lot of other people who say, well, it is a cometary object or a meteor or whatever it is. and you never get to hear the other side of a story, because he grabs the headline.
Sexy UFOs sell. Alien invasion sell, or they sell right now when you're trying to distract people things from like the Epstein list.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing with my own investigations. Really, I've not tried to follow an agenda or follow a certain viewpoint. So I've tried to present the people's stories as they were told to me, and I think that's the best way of doing it, really, because if you start wanting to collect evidence for extraterrestrials or
You'll find it, right?
whatever, yeah, you can go down that rabbit hole of just having that tunnel vision. I think even one of the people I interviewed said he had a kind of blinkered view of the world because it was all in terms of UFOs. So he interpreted anything that happened to him in his life in terms of UFOs. And I think it's easy to go down that rabbit hole because as humans, we're always looking for patterns. And if you start looking for things that fit that pattern, you'll find them. Just recently, I've written an article for Fortean Times about angels and angel astronauts, because in my book I mention these kind of cases. And ever since, I keep seeing angels everywhere and finding that 2 or 3 people have mentioned to me, oh yeah, I've spoken to somebody who said that the wife saw an angel and the husband saw an alien, but we're both looking at the same thing. And I thought that was quite an intriguing thing, because it just shows how we interpret what we see.
Tomato.
On your own psychology. And is it some abnormal form of psychology that caused that sighting, or is it something from beyond? And I think that's the tension. Somebody like Jacques Vallée and John Keel sort of argue that these things are being beamed down to us and manipulating us from outside. But is it our own psychology and the social and cultural context?
See, I've wondered that. Not just in UFO, but in the paranormal altogether when it comes to Bigfoot or ghost sightings. And I mean, like, there's so many things too with like abductees that you don't hear about or talk about, but like where they're having a psychokinetic activity in their home, or paranormal, like haunted things happening to them, or it happened to them throughout their whole life. Interesting. Your book starts off with this Paul Bennett, right? Paul Bennett, I think was his name, right? And he has a plethora of experiences. Myself, if you've listened to my show for 10 years, you can hear all the plethora of experiences I've had. Some of us are weird and we see things others don't. And I relate with Mr. Paul Bennett in that book, because I've not had anything near what he has had, nothing like that. But I've had a lot of strange, weird experiences, and that's what it seems like Paul's life is filled with. That you felt like he was an honest person, but he's seeing things and having a perspective that's totally different than a lot of people.
Yeah, it's funny because I was speaking to somebody just today, and we were talking about different experiences like those of Paul Bennett, where it's seen UFOs and a 12-foot high robot and thing.
Right, he had this robot encounter. It was 12 foot high. Was that how big that thing was that he saw?
Yeah, and green, and it looked solid, but it hovered above the ground and moved, glided along. And that's interesting, because in a lot of cases of people seeing aliens, they seem to float. The Pascagoula case of the aliens that looked like mummies, but the feet were stuck together, and we glided towards Dixon and Parker. And that seems to be an element in a lot of these encounters.
And some of my videos I've showed on the World Wide Web of Weird, there's an interesting one in a gas station happened several years ago in Mexico, and where you see like that, a grayish like alien being in the background who's floating like that. They're not walking, they're floating.
And I think also there can be like ghostly figures, insubstantial, and that people can perhaps see through them. They're transparent or they're shadowy figures. There's often accounts of people seeing landed UFOs with like shadowy alien beings nearby. And there's a sheer variety of the shapes and sizes of aliens. In my book, it was before before the sort of grey entities become the dominant ones that people report. I think there's one account of something like that, a large-headed alien with a small body, but otherwise the accounts in my book are of sort of angelic beings and that robot and
Robot gold one. I remember gold ones you had there with they had like tubes and stuff. It was the child's report. Yeah, you had a whole section there about what children see and how can variety. You know, there was the famous case. Oh, I'm forgetting all the names of everything right now and where it was. A school children case and a famous UFO investigator who did a whole thing on it. Oh, God damn it. And the point I was going to make about it is that he had a very environmentally kind of perception about aliens giving a message of we're going to destroy the Earth and all this. And it seemed like he influenced the children in these interviews. I'm trying to remember the case. It's famous, super famous. I think there's a Netflix documentary on it, too. But it just, he kind of, it feels like he put his own, like, environment, like the aliens told you, what did the aliens say about the Earth and if it was in danger? Like, he led. You can even hear it in the interviews. There's some leading going on there with the children. And I hate that. Like, I want just, what did the child see? I don't care if it fits the patagram of what we expect a UFO experience to be. I just want to hear from the words what the child saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very difficult because children can be quite malleable. And that, you know, it's difficult to interview them
Was it John Mack?
Suggesting things. But yeah, John Mack, I think it was it Zimbabwe?
Yes, that's it. It is John Mack. It was. And nothing against John Mack, but I've seen the interviews. I saw the documentary. It does seem like he leads a little bit there. And he's not doing an honest, to me, investigation when you're leading.
I find it also with his book about alien abductions is that although he's a psychiatrist, some of the cases you read just sound like downright fantasy, and yet he doesn't seem to address that. I think that's what I really hate about these sort of books that around alternative theories. And it's same in Britain. Some people advocate, are advocates for certain UFO cases, but they won't say what alternative explanations are. And if you do give them alternative explanations, some of which can be quite mundane, they hate it. They either mention it and then deride it and say, oh, that doesn't account for, X, Y, and Z. And I think there is that thing also with UFO witnesses themselves. If you tell them what they saw was a satellite, they'll more than likely deny it and say, that's nothing like a satellite. That's, I know what a satellite looks like. But then in certain circumstances, people can be mistaken. And also there's a sort of will to believe, somebody's really interested in UFOs and you go outside and you see something strange, you're going to call it a UFO and think, you've kind of joined the club, and there's that element to it as well.
I just don't believe that can be the case for everyone. My dad made this kind of argument about Bigfoot because he's like, he can get into the UFO thing and ghosts and all that. He's like, he's just going to buy Bigfoot. And my reason for buying that, even though I've never seen Bigfoot, for buying it is just thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of witnesses. I mean, it is, and they're all varying their descriptions and experiences very widely. And we have the whole paranormal phenomenon, but people are experiencing something. He's like, well, the brain can trick you. The brain can trick you. And I get that. I understand that. But there's something they're seeing, something they're experiencing. There's something interacting with these people. And I think that's the same for
Yeah,
a lot of the UFO cases. We might not be getting an honest interpretation from somebody. Maybe it's honest from what they believe they saw, but but the brain can only handle it. I always give this example of what is it when the conquistadors invaded, that the only people the Mayans could see the ships in the ocean were the shamans. That the people on the beach their brains could not translate and see it because it wasn't something they understood. And is that what we're dealing with here in a lot of these experiences?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The thing about perception, and perhaps some people are more open to seeing things, and perhaps how they interpret what they see is something like shaped by the UFO sort of mythology or whatever you might call it. And I think there's the fact that there are thousands and thousands of sightings, but there are literally probably hundreds of different explanations for them. And so you can't just put one label and say, it's all misidentification or anything.
It's all swamp gas.
You almost have to put them all through a different filter, really. And it's same with abductions. Some might be just because they are hoaxes or fabrications, but just calling them sleep paralysis or fantasy or false memory effects on people. It's just to slap labels on these experiences. So
it's not a deep look into the phenomenon of alien abduction, because I have one right off the bat, a friend and guest on this show that to me proves alien abduction to me. He's got the X-rays to prove it, in my opinion. Is Terry Lovelace. He wrote Incident at Devil's Den. And to me, he's one of the best cases I've had on here in alien abduction. And I've had my own experiences. When it talks about perception, the one time I saw a clear UFO, when I mean clear, it wasn't just a light in the sky I saw. Okay, and I've had that. But this was a full-fledged on ship, 600-700 feet above my head. And it no lights, and I was 16 years old, standing out there with 4 other people, and this thing it was just suddenly all looked up for no reason. I felt like this weird buzzing in my head for a second or two, and looked up. Something told me to look up. They all did too. They must have had the same feeling. And this thing just went silently overhead downtown Michigan City, and just flew off into the night. I was just like this fast, just gone. Just right away. It was massive and huge. The next day, 3 out of those 4 people had no memory of that. Only one of them kind of had a memory of it. Me, I remember the whole thing. So, why do I have that perception and see it while 4 other people really don't have? It's like erased from their mind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that seems to happen quite a lot. I'm kind of skeptical of sort of UFO things as something real, but then when you speak to people and like your experience, it makes you wonder, because you can't always explain everything. And
they saw it that night. They acknowledged what we saw right there that night. It was the next day. It was like gone from their memory.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Yeah, that's where perhaps people can't cope with having such a sighting, so their minds sort of censored it out of
That's
their
why I've been
mind.
always interested in the psychology of these experiences, in a sense. I'm not a psychologist at all or anything like that, but I'm interested in it because of that experience. I have memories going back to when I was very little to paranormal experiences, seeing a green floating head fly through the room with my cousin. He wrote it off as a dream. Years later, when I brought it up to him, he got really white. He's like, "How do you know about that dream?" I'm like, "I was there with you. We saw it together." I'm saying, like, his brain changed it to a dream, while my brain held on to it as that happened. There can be green floating heads that can fly in your room and scream and yell at you. From my age of 5, I understood that as a reality, while he wrote it off as a dream. Something in my brain's been wired more to pick up and understand and accept these things, while others don't. I guess, is my only understanding of my experience, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. Paul Bennett, who I mentioned in the book, he saw some sort of angel-like figure in his bedroom with his
It was
brother.
like an astronaut too, right? He said there was like an
Yeah.
astronaut gear with angel wings.
And he said his friend and his brother wanted to run away, and he wanted to run towards it.
Yeah, I'd be the one running towards it.
So I think that sums up his whole character, really. He's a very curious and intelligent person. And he like fearlessly wanted to explore, you know, the unknown and things, whereas his friends were more like likely to want to just run away from it.
Run the other way, right?
Yeah.
I really liked Paul when I read the first part of the book is about Paul. I really liked him. I totally hang out with Paul. You know, I just relate. You know, he's a guy who was out there. You know, I mean, a lot of things he misinterpreted or wasn't paranormal phenomenon or UFOs. It could be the possibility, but I love how you capture his experiences. There's, you know, you just take the experiences as he relates them, and that's what we need. That's why I do this show, and I have open phone lines for people to call in. I just want to hear experience. I'm not going to judge anybody on that experience. I'm just going to listen. You know, we can't put the pieces of the puzzle together if we're not getting all the pieces.
Yeah, I think another thing with Paul that happens with a lot of other people is that if they've had an experience, they will also want to investigate other people's sightings and experiences. And Paul Bennett kept notebooks about his experiences, but he also started writing about other sightings in the area of where he lived, which was Bradford in West Yorkshire. And, you know, he was quite enthusiastic about finding ley lines and connections with more and what they call it, the Neolithic past. You know, he felt there was a connection between modern day phenomenon and the moorland near where he lived, but in the past there was a lot of mysterious things going on there, but people might have experienced things just as we experience them now, otherworldly events going on. And I think he's gone on now to study more about megaliths and stone circles and that sort.
Well, there's something there. I mean, if you look at that whole area, and you mentioned all the books or all the towns that end in LY, you know, and these towns or the map of the ley lines, you can see that they almost built. I mean, you have all the monolithic stuff that goes back to the Neolithic age that was also seemed to be built on these ley lines, but then it seemed even the organized churches built their churches on all these spots too.
Yeah. Well, if you travel through Britain, you know, Stonehenge is the best example, and Avebury, and yet wherever you go, you're never very far from a stone circle or a standing stone. Where I live near Plymouth, and you just have to go on the moors, and there's quite a few stone rows. There's one near Tavistock, and it covers, you know, a few acres of these rows of stones, and it's fascinating to think, you know, but it must have been a massive undertaking because it was something that was conducted, well, not just in Britain, but throughout Europe and even other parts of the world. And it makes you wonder why they built these things. People have said they might be for astronomical purposes, but the stone columns near Tavistock, they don't really line up with anything astronomical. So it makes you wonder if they were built for some other purposes, you know, ceremonial or religious. And this thing of churches being built on these old sites shows that there was a kind of continuity going on. And
or not some kind of knowledge of ley lines.
Yeah,
you know,
it does make you wonder. I'm just fascinated by these stone circles and megaliths, and in Britain we tend to be a bit out of the way on moors and things, but if you go to somewhere like Brittany, we're all over the place. You can just virtually drive past different monoliths, and it's just fascinating that people so far back in time were building these things and put a lot of resources into them. So I think it just shows there's a certain power to these sites as well. I think it's a bit like entering a haunted house. You get this feeling of something beyond your normal reality going on. And I think stone circles often evoke that.
There's something in the ground. I mean, when people are watching, they have for America, we have in Utah the Skinwalker Ranch, which has its own like TV show, right? And it's scientists. But what they look into, what they've been finding there is what's in the ground. What they're finding is also energy readings they can't understand coming from the ground. And what you got there, you have the ley lines and and all this Neolithic monoliths that they built in these spots along these ley lines thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Is there these areas or these where the veil's thin, maybe, or we can, again, all speculation, but it seems to be our areas in the world where this phenomenon is more prevalent. Hudson Valley in New York, that's always, been a very hot spot. There just seems to be these places that are like Skinwalker Ranch, and these things seem to be more prevalent.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that changes the perception in us in that area, the energy or our mindset, our brains to see these things, or maybe it's just an area where the veil's thin and these things can cross through and show themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be a factor that we like to find patterns, because even Paul Bennett, who lived in Bradford, looked at ley lines, and he developed this idea that there was a kind of Bradford triangle where lots of different UFOs and different events were happening in a concentrated area. And that does seem to be a factor. In Britain, we had Warminster in the 60s, which was a hotspot of UFO activity. And although it's faded away, a lot of older ufologists like myself still like to go back there for nostalgic reasons. But that was
you never know; it might start up again.
Yeah, you never know.
That's another thing. Besides areas or locations, there's also UFO flaps. I mean, during the time I saw that UFO in Michigan City, Indiana, we had a couple different instances. There was a UFO that was famously spotted over the lake. Around that same month period where I saw this thing, there were some other lights in the sky during that time. And that was it. That was Michigan City's hotspot, I think, at that time. But, there's I got to talk to a French pilot that was involved in, but he was flying internationally at that time, contracted, and he was part of the Belgium wave. He got to fly right up to one of those triangle craft in the 90s. Those Belgium, you remember the whole Belgium UFO wave, which I thought would be, the Belgium wave would be an awesome band name, but it's a really cool UFO. And I actually I had to have a translator translate it to me. I met this guy through video games, of all places, right? But this guy is retired French pilot and was there, flew up right up to one of these things, said all of his instruments shut down. He couldn't get a lock on this thing, yeah. So, but there's these UFO flaps that we have in certain times in history.
Yeah.
That's also its own kind of phenomenon.
Yeah. I think when the Ministry of Defense commissioned a sort of project to look into UFOs, it's called Project Condign, and they commissioned somebody to write a kind of overview of all the information they had. And it was a way of just shutting down the UFO files. Really. Yeah, but that suggested that UFOs that were encountered by pilots or that caused interference with radios or other electronic equipment it put forward the idea that it might be some form of rare plasma that enters our atmosphere and then can affect aircraft and and anything else that encounters them. But these seem to be something that some people have supported, the idea of plasma, and also.
Well, there's like the accounts of the Foo Fighters, basically in the 40s, 30s of the World War II, and the pilots, they believe this is caused by electromagnetic friction or something in the atmosphere with their planes that cause these lights. But like I said, with this pilot, with the Belgian wave, he saw clear as day. Huge, massive triangle UFO, So there's a difference between the two, I mean, some of it might be that kind of phenomenon. The plasma phenomenon is really interesting, and they say it could, there's theories about it affecting people's brains, the electromagnetic activity or ball lightning and stuff like that. I don't know, but I just don't think they can explain everything that we're talking about encounters, and that's like your book. There's a lot of things going on in these encounters.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's all sorts of variety of UFOs and abductions and different things, so you have to have a variety of explanations or way of investigating them, really, and that's why one theory doesn't fit all, and that's why I think the mystery will always endure, because there's always these different aspects to the subject. So you might explain one type of sighting, but then you won't explain other types of sightings. And also, it's such a worldwide phenomenon, and I think it's often thought of as an American thing, because of Roswell and Area 51, and even our own Rendlesham Forest incident involved American service personnel rather than British people. So it's almost like America's got the monopoly on all the major cases, but when you look at things at a lower level, there's UFO sightings and encounters and abductions wherever you look, and I think that's a fascinating aspect of the subject. You don't have to live near Area 51 to find out about the subject, and I think that's a problem with disclosure. Is that no government can really hide UFO evidence, and that if the UFOs can go anywhere they like, the government can't really stop them. So you can investigate the subject in your own back garden, really. And
I mean, what did you think about as we covered it quite a bit on here, was the whole drones or craziness we had last year, as all the drone sightings, and you had the Biden administration here in America saying nothing to see here, there's no threat, nothing going on, and then the Trump administration, nothing to see here, nothing going on, we know what they are. Before it was Biden was, we don't know what they are. Trump's administration, we know what they are, but we're not going to tell you. It's Lockheed Martin, it's it's Raytheon, it's all these, it's military industrial complex. Well, I can buy a lot of that, but not all of it.
No, I think it was a typical flap, really. In Britain, I think it was the early 70s, in northern England, we had this flap of phantom helicopters. These phantom helicopters were seen all over the Pennines, and some people thought were, the IRA doing missions over Britain, because that was at the time of the Troubles, and then one or two pilots come out and said they were flying a private helicopter and they were causing it. So you had some people coming out of the woodwork to say they did it. Then there's all these conspiratorial rumours that the IRA were operating in secret using these helicopters.
Fear can spread a lot of rumors really quick.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a short-lived flap, really. I suppose it was 2 or 3 months long or something, but there's quite a few, convincing sightings, really. But it was all interpreted in the terms of a helicopter and of some sort of secret operation or somebody joyriding. And I think that's very similar to this drone situation. People are going outside and seeing these things, and there are a lot of drones being operated. And you only need some sort of trigger headline.
It wasn't just people, though. You had police departments tracking these things. You had sheriff's departments getting involved and understanding. And then you had the sightings near nuclear installations, military bases, places of high sensitivity. And so there was a lot going on, a lot of distraction, not any honest answers from our government. And then this is why why does anybody expect disclosure to come from our government?
Yeah.
Anything they say cannot be really trusted in the end. I mean, they're never an honest player in these situations.
I think it's interesting that President Trump stamped on it and killed, attempted to kill it.
But now I'm seeing headlines that Trump is trying to be the disclosure president. He's going to be the one to release it all. I've seen those headlines just in the last couple of days. I'm like,
yeah.
Sure. Sure. He's got a lot he should be disclosing. I don't know. I don't see it happening. We got to go to commercial break, Nigel. There's more I want to talk about. There's a lot going on in the UFO world right now, too, we can talk about tonight. But I want to continue to talk about your book. He's written a great book I'm really enjoying right now. Like I said, I'm about 120 pages in. Is Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited, High Strangeness, British UFO Cases. This is really interesting stuff, guys. I really highly recommend these Paranormal Perspective books from 6 Books. This is a new one out by there. Jamie shared the links in Amazon, link to it in the chat. But you guys should definitely check this out. We're going to go to commercial break. But when we come back, we will open the phone lines. Do you have your own high strangeness you'd like to share tonight with our guest, Nigel Watson? Even if you shared it before on the show, feel free to call and share again. I don't care. I don't care hearing about it again. Call in, wait till the commercial break's over, and I'll open up the phone lines and you can join this conversation. But we'll be right back.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
Please, Clark, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Nigel Watson. He's the author of Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited, High Strangeness British UFO Cases. And that's what I'm loving about this book. I'm getting into it last couple days here, and I'm loving you're getting like honest UFO cases in a sense of the fact. I'm not saying none of them are, but you're getting all like the Paul Bennett story. He starts off with this. You're getting all these different experiences, and that's what I'm saying. So many people that have, let's say, an alien encounter might have other paranormal experiences, or somebody who has a ghost paranormal haunted house, you'll find out they saw a UFO. There's a lot of things that happen in people's lives, I seem, sometimes, not everyone, that they have a lot of experiences, and they get pushed aside to fit one paranormal perspective or box or ufology or Bigfoot or ghost. And there can be so much more to it. And we're getting into those kind of things tonight, a lot of these cases, but I'd like to hear from you. What's your high strangeness do you want to talk about? Call into the show. Phone lines are open. Join our conversation. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you for staying up early in the morning with us here tonight on my side. Early morning for you, Nigel. So, we're talking about UFO flaps and stuff. In the U.S. recently, in the last few years, we've had, we talk about seeing lights in the sky, alien thing, but we've actually even started to see a flap of encounters with alien beings. I shouldn't say just the U.S. I have a case in Peru that's pretty ongoing, where they call them the skin peelers. There's been a journalist, I can't think of his name, that's been covering that. You have the Las Vegas case, where the family had the aliens in the backyard. The police were called. We have the dash cam footage of that, and then some footage that got out on the internet from them maybe seeing the aliens we showed on the show, and stories that go all over the place with that one. You have the Miami Mall incident, which I think is not real, but the internet's still talking about it years later now, 2 years later, 3 years later. When did that happen? 2 years ago? I mean, there's these instances now where people are not just having UFO experiences now, we're starting to have like full-body alien experiences. So it seems like we have some phenomena changes happening here in the U.S. lately.
Uh-huh. Also, there's this new terminology of non-human intelligences, and
Right.
I think it comes
You mean
from
aliens?
It's just rebranding, you know.
That's their control mechanism. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and also, this, you know, and it's equated with UAPs, but UAPs are equated with drones in a way. Are these sort of like non-human intelligence control
I
drones?
speculated about this. I
Yeah.
speculated about this during the whole drone UFO UAP situation. Is
Yeah.
this part of the rebranding and the control mechanism, making us all think every time you don't hear the word UFO anymore, they don't want us to use that, they're going to use UAP, but you're going to associate that now with, oh, possibly it's a drone.
Yeah.
Like it was a whole psyop in itself. I don't know.
Yeah, because
But-
some people have argued, oh, we've pressured Congress to study UAPs because it could be a dangerous foreign threat, which was the same argument for UFOs in the sort of 1950s, and that the CIA actually wanted to put a lid on flying saucer sightings and things because they felt it was it could overwhelm the defenses against any Russian invasion, because if people start reporting lots of things in the sky, how can they interpret what might be nuclear missiles coming in from just some UFO of some sort? And I think that's a problem with these drone sightings, really, especially if seen near military bases and nuclear sites. You know, is it just pranksters, or is it foreign agencies, or you know, something more sinister? So I think it's in the interest of the authorities to kind of.
You literally you had a U.S. was a congressman or senator, I can't remember which jackass was up there saying, I know it's an Iranian ship off the coast of America that it's got these drones coming. Like he's on Fox News or wherever, just blurting this out. I know. I've had the intel, like saying that, you know, like, okay. If that's the case, we got a major problem.
Yeah.
But was it that? No.
I think another problem with all these UAPs or drones or whatever they are, nobody's actually shot one down or recovered one. Whereas, you know, with the Chinese balloon incidents, fighter jets were able to shoot them down, and there were actually material objects which were filmed and seen by eyewitnesses, and like I say, shot down. Whereas with these drones, I suppose the argument is if a non-terrestrial or non-human intelligence is operating them, but they're operating them at such a high level of sophistication that these things are moving at hypersonic speeds, and they're moving with great acceleration, and they're able to go into the sea as well to elude our
Transmedium.
Transmedium. So in a way, we've got all these, you know, magical technological powers, but a lot of this is just based on one or two accounts, and that's another problem with ufology. It's like people say, people report seeing, you know, the greys with the spindly bodies and the heads and that. They say, thousands of these sightings, but really it could be just 50 or 100, but people sort of make it a universal law for these
Oh,
things.
yeah, I mean, I've seen it with the Roswell. It was always drove me nuts with the Roswell case. I see book covers or media that'll show Roswell and they'll show a gray spindly alien as the dead alien. I'm like, that's not the accounts of the witnesses from Roswell. That's not what they looked like.
Yeah.
That the aliens, if you go back and read Stanton Friedman, who I had the honor to meet, and others who researched Roswell and read the interviews with the witnesses that were able to get,
Yeah.
none of the aliens, they did not look like gray spindly aliens. They looked like cherub children.
Yeah. Or if you look at the Betty and Barney Hill case, their aliens were quite different. I think Barney described them as having Jimmy Durante noses, so we were quite different from the kind of aliens now. And I think...
But you remember they did the James Earl Jones movie, Betty and Barney Hill.
Yeah.
And they didn't make them look like that at all. What did they make them look like? A very early adaptation, I think, of something that's similar to a gray alien.
Yeah. Oh, with Fire in the Sky. They had the kind of... do we have a sort of weird...
Shriveled little human.
That was
yeah, it was like they were shriveled skinned humans or something weird like that with like square little heads and weird. But that's not what Travis Walton saw at all. Not at all.
That's another thing. It's the influence of the media which fascinates me as well, because I think Close Encounters of the Third Kind in particular did influence a lot of ufology. It had a big impact in Britain because of all the publicity surrounding it. So it meant more people were reporting close encounters at that time. And it's interesting because close encounters now don't seem to occur very often. Back then, if you look at the old UFO magazines, there's loads of accounts of people saying, I was driving along, I saw a UFO land, and I saw aliens of some sort nearby, or people were driving along and have seen robots or entities in silvery outfits. And nowadays, you hardly get those sort of accounts.
Like Ricky Zamora, or the police officer, is a famous case. I mean, he saw, he didn't see gray spindly aliens. I think he saw people in, white suits, almost like you'd think you would somebody working at NASA.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, and, you have other encounters. I mean, it's hard to, like I said, the Roswell incident drives me nuts every time I see a gray depicted in that, because I really read into Roswell at a young age and know that's not what the aliens were described as looking like at all at Roswell.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cases. It's hard to say if I'm interested in that idea. That I'm a big Spielberg fan, and I love Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I love his Taken miniseries he did. I have it on box set. I'm a big Spielberg fan, but did he influence it all? Do you think? I mean, I saw that as your kind of speculation that maybe he influenced that movie, influenced the whole perception. Now we have these spindly gray aliens.
Oh.
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely possible. It's also, the same time in that genre of times in the 70s of movies, there's a lot in the paranormal community that was affected by movies. You had Close Encounters of the Third Kind that definitely, I think, what I've always talked about, if it introduced the spindly kind of gray aliens as a good possibility, it also reintroduced the concept of friendly, benign aliens compared to the monster movies of aliens that we had.
Yeah.
I mean, Aliens came out. I'm a Ridley Scott fan. I loved Alien. That was a total monster alien, total different vision, right? They're either here to help us and be our space brothers, or they're here to infect us with alien babies that burst out of our stomach. There's a lot of things going on in the psychosis of the media when it comes to aliens, but Spielberg had a huge effect. I can't deny that.
Yeah, and also he brought in this sort of spiritual
E.T.,
dimension, and also the psychological connection between the aliens and civilians who were drawn to the mountain where the military were going to meet, and in a way the aliens were able to get beyond the military control of things, so ordinary civilians also got enmeshed in this.
I always wanted a sequel to that. I always wanted to see what happened to Richard Dreyfuss after he came back, but I'm glad they haven't. They would butcher it and kill it, and that's why Spielberg didn't do it. But, what happened to Richard Dreyfuss? Because, in UFO mythology, you can see where things sprang out from. You have Serpico.
Yeah.
What is that? But Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's the story of what happens after.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, isn't what Serpico kind of is? I mean, and I love it for it. I love it, but is it true? I don't know. You wonder, people think some people in Hollywood, Kubrick, Spielberg, have these inside knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or given maybe, I don't know. Like he has a definite. Spielberg has a fascination with UFOs. He's got a new thing coming out. We all know about it. You know, he did the Taken miniseries, which I'm a huge fan of. He did, of course, E.T., but I'm not, you know, and I fell asleep on that when I was a little kid, and woke up and thought E.T. died. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I'm a huge fan of. I love that movie. You know, he shaped the narrative on this, but he's somebody who's investigated it. You know, he did a lot of research before Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They did a lot of research before that movie. So, you know, I don't think he's somebody who, I don't know if he's trying to shape the narrative purposely, or he's trying to represent what he's investigated on his own, or he's just making a good movie. I don't know.
I think there's been quite a few people have argued that Hollywood has tried to shape our the view of the subject, and that they're being funded by secret, you know, government agencies, so that we'll be ready to accept the alien presence. But Hollywood movies aren't very consistent about.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're trying to shape the narrative's all over the place a little bit. I maybe if they were their attempts are, you know, they funded Spielberg to make this movie like E.T., Friendly Alien, Close Encounters of the Kind. They're going to take you on a trip with Richard Dreyfuss, and at the same time, you know, Ridley Scott's got to deal with another Fox or whatever to make, you know, Alien. They can't stop it.
Independence Day.
Oh yeah.
An invasion movie.
I love that movie too, just because of the one scene where Bill Pullman is president, and he's like, "There's no such thing as Area 51." Well, they would know about it, and he's like, "Well, sir," because you think they're telling presidents? Not after Nixon took Jackie Gleason to go see the dead alien bodies, as I proposed on the show with Paul Blake Sinclair or Paul Blake Smith. Sorry. I had Paul Blake Smith on here a couple times. He's a great UFO researcher. And he had the whole Jackie Gleason thing book he did on the Jackie Gleason and Richard Nixon, famous in UFO lore in America, that he took Jackie Gleason to see the alien bodies. I'm like, well, if that happened, that was the last president to know. You know what I'm saying? They're not letting anybody get it. No president's going to know after that one, right? And he only knew because he worked during he was vice president during Eisenhower. You know, I think they stopped telling anybody after that.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the interviews with Trump, he's like, when it comes about UFOs, he's always, I just recently, for some reason, he has an interest of being the UFO disclosure president suddenly. But before all that, he was kind of like, nothing to see.
Yeah, I like Men in Black, where they get all the news of aliens from the Weekly World News.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I mean, truth is stranger than fiction, they say, and I don't know. We live in a land of illusion. You can't, even if somebody gets the AI thing now. We got AI that can recreate anything in a video you want, right? So nobody, even if you get a full aliens land and are coming out of the ship and they take you on board and show you Venus or Uranus. Sorry. Nobody's going to believe it. I don't care quality, good video footage it is. Everybody's going to be like, oh, you made it with AI or special effects. It's on the, you know.
But
that's where we're a land of illusion.
Yeah, but I think that's a dilemma of UFO photographs. If they're either fuzzy and out of focus, although if they're too clear, like Billy Myers,
it's completely fake.
Oh, it looks too fake, so you can't really win. So,
no, that's what I've always said about it. There's no proof to this to anyone unless the aliens are like staying. You know what I'm saying? Like, the evasion's happening, pretty much. Until the moment that happens, I think it'll be in pure denial. There won't be... the only way the real disclosure happens is through us, through people who've experienced it, being open and more open to talk about it, and not scared to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something I'm trying to do in my book, to show the wide range of experiences.
Right.
Each individual seems to have a different set of experiences or meets different types of aliens or different types of communication. But there are kind of running themes as well. Like quite a few of them seem to be influenced by the Bible and the Book of Revelations. And that was something apocalyptic about to happen. And I think just by looking at UFOs or just reading about it, it makes you think more about yourself in terms of the universe, about we're a very small part of a vast universe, and that it does take you out of your normal day-to-day life and reality. And so I think that's something about reading books like John Keel's books. What if that is true? And as a sort of ufologist, it's fascinating to look at that. But I don't want to slavishly follow any theory, so I'm a bit of a contrarian and think, oh, it could be because of X, Y, and Z, and what about something else? And I think you've got to look at these things from different perspectives. And I think certain people who used to work with the CIA and promoted UFOs have gone around lecturing, showing pictures of reflections of chandeliers and windows.
Oh, we still got. I'm going to call it out. I called it out on the show. I'm over it. Is Luis Elizondo. I wanted to give the guy a chance, but more than once now, he's shown stuff that has been completely debunked before he ever showed it. But yet he's showing it. Why are you doing this? Do your research. I don't know what your problem is. You're supposed to be representing that you work for the government.
Hmm.
How much you getting paid for that appearance to show that fake photo up there that you just told everybody is a UFO?
The good part is we're making our own database of sorts, and everybody's putting in their own experiences and photos and what has happened to them, their books, and we decipher what we think sounds about right, doesn't. But we are making our own database. When people do things like that, though, it just sets back everything.
Or maybe he's being set up. Maybe he just doesn't do his research like he should, and somebody gives him like, yeah, here's one for you, Lou. This is a good photo. Okay. And he puts it up there, and he gets totally played.
I think that's what he said, didn't he? That it was from a good source of information. But that it undermines him even more because he's not very good judge of where he's getting this information from.
Right. He's not researching it.
Yeah. And I think I read, but he's not really read any UFO books or anything, so he doesn't seem to have much grasp of the subject at large. Because,
Thank you. Yeah.
If he just read Operation Trojan Horse, he'd at least get some glimpse of the extent.
Sometimes I wonder for some of these guys that did work for the government, CIA, they're like, hey, I got a retirement plan. Don't worry. I got my pension, but I got an extra retirement plan. I'm going to do the UFO circuit.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I'm serious. I wonder sometimes the way these things are done. And I don't know who to trust. Have you seen the Jacob Barber interviews they've had on News Nation?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I guess they're hiring Jacob Barber. He's going to actually have and David Grush are going to have actual, like work for Congress on these investigations. They're given official positions now.
Yeah.
Okay. But is it true? Is what's happening with Jacob Barber true? I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to know. I'm not disbelieving him or not. We're talking about telepathic communication with aliens. We're talking about he was part of a crash retrieval program. Okay, this is what we've been talking about for a UFO whistleblower if he's it.
Yeah.
But I need more.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest and headlines throughout the world about the physiological effects of UFOs on humans and animals, and it was touted as something that was a top secret document. But
right, we talked about this last week.
Domain for years. You could look up on the MUFON website, and it was actually on there because it was compiled years ago, and it was actually compiled from UFO magazines. And a lot of the cases, if you look at them, they're not really that convincing as a physiological affected incident, and that they're trying to say, oh, this is this top secret report and all this business, but the only sort of top secret bit of it was their analysis of these so-called cases. But that analysis only works if the data is correct.
There is the thing that came out with. who's the physicist? He did an interview with I watched Jordan Peterson recently. He's been in the scene for a while, but what is it? He's talking about that he was hired. Who was it? God dang it, I can't think of his name. He's a I don't know, not a physicist, microbiologist. No, had to do with he basically was hired for the government to just to basically study the effects on people, like the Cuban syndrome. Like the what's happened down there and these biological effects that can cause from these weird things like UFOs and others. What is his name? I can't think. It was a really interesting interview, but it showed that our government has an interest in these kind of effects on people.
Yeah, but that's a problem. There's a lot of white papers generated about exotic propulsion systems and almost science fiction ideas, and that's all there were really, ideas tricked up in sort of technical scientific language, but there were things that don't actually exist, and we've kind of grafted it onto UFO data as well. And UFO data is notoriously bad because there are no sort of standards for investigation, and even if you've got a good investigator, they haven't got the time and resources to pour into a really good investigation. You've always got to work within your own limitations, really. If you look
financial limitations, I mean,
and
for a lot of these,
the sort of resources you need, like experts in anything from psychology, meteorology, astronomy, it's multidisciplinary. So to get that kind of gathering of people, just for one, even for a light in the sky, you might not actually be able to explain it, So I think that's the whole problem with saying, thousands of people have seen X, Y, and Z. But then if you look at the different cases, you can pick it out to end up with just one or two cases. I think that's what the latest sort of agency that's lumbered with looking at UFOs is trying to do. We're trying to find explanations and then release data on the cases we can't explain. But that seems to be a repeat of Project Blue Book, really.
Right, that's what I've called it out as. I think they've done. I've called it out as a setup too, because one of the first initial hearings, I remember them showing the footage from one of the ships where you could see like a triangle in night vision.
Oh yeah,
UFO, and I'm like, and we knew at that moment, and later, they were, this is so fascinating. But most people that were in this knew right away that is not a UFO. That could be a drone. It could be something up there, but what you're seeing as a triangle is the shape of the iris of that actual lens. It's too much light, so that's what you're getting. But yet they showed this at a congressional hearing as this is UFO evidence, and when they probably have so much better footage they could show. I mean, look at the Tic Tac and the other stuff has been pretty incredible. You have this News Nation thing where there's a helicopter picking up what looks like an egg in a ball sack. Is that real? I don't know. Let's get that down in the congressional hearings and talk about it. I don't know where'd they get. I want the source on that. That's a real UFO. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Congress will do these hearings and get this evidence from so-called experts, but are they really experts? They're just promoting.
Who can be an expert on this?
And also, the United States Navy or Air Force, they're flying around in massive multi-million-dollar aircraft, but we can't take a decent HD photograph. Like you can have a dash cam on your car and get better pictures than you can from a jet. Who's allegedly seen these UFOs.
I love Jeremy Corbell. And he just released the recently footage that's supposed to be from the military, right? He gets it, right? And it's clear as day. It looks like a big, really hauntingly saucer moving through the clouds coming from a military aircraft filming it, right? Wow. But then they say it's AI enhanced. Okay, I need some more information. Like, how enhanced is this? How enhanced is this? I don't know. What am I really looking at? And this is the stuff we need to know. Like, I love Jerry Corbell. No, nothing against him. But I hear that and I'm like, And I want this officially released by our government. If this came from why wouldn't they show that at the congressional hearing?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a bit like in the past when we saw faces and structures on Mars, and it's only because it was a low definition images coming from spacecraft, so it couldn't look like a face on Mars. But when we got higher resolution pictures, then we realized it was nothing like a face, really. It only looked like a face because that's
the conspiracy theorists would say, no, they sent a ship up there and they blew it up before they got, and then they took another picture. I'm just saying, in their defense. It's devil's advocate here. Sorry. But, there's, I don't, on my World Wide Web Weird, I skip over a lot of stories about, ooh, look at this on Mars, another picture of Mars. There is weird stuff. I've seen pictures that, looks like skulls and stuff, but I understand how our brains look for patterns, and, it's hard to say, we won't know until Elon Musk gets a group of people who are never coming back, and he sends them there. If they live. I'm sorry. We still haven't gone back to the moon. Come on, I'm a big advocate of thinking the aliens are on the moon. The moon might be an artificial alien base. I'm all big fascination with that in the moon. And I'm not one of those people. I have friends and people on the show like, we never went to the moon. I'm like, I think we did. I think we went to the moon, and I think we saw aliens. And never came back. The thing is, in America, we're having this big argument and conversation about that. In England, you guys still aren't. I don't know if it's going to have any influence on you guys there, but I think you guys have plenty of information too. I would think your government would know.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the general line of investigation in Britain is to leave it to the Americans to do it, because they haven't got the time or resources to bother. That's what we say, publicly. And I think it's like a lot of things. There might be individuals in these organizations that are interested in the subject, but we have to do it as a side hustle rather than as it being part of their main job. And I think that's what's happened in America. There's been a cohort of different people in different agencies who have been trying to promote this idea that UAPs and non-human intelligences are coming here. But they, like I say, we haven't got any sufficient evidence for this, but we're just pushing it. Because I think the attitude is if you keep pushing this, the real stuff might actually come out, So.
And that's a possibility. I'm a huge Art Bell fan, and he used to say on his show when this subject would come out is like, if they let anything out or any kind of disclosure of any kind from the U.S. government, which we've had a little, it's like a snowball. And no matter what you want to try to hide or to cover it up, it'll keep rolling, and more questions are going to be asked, and more people are going to start coming out. Yeah. And is that what's happening? I don't know.
No, I think it's one of those things where people say, there'll be disclosure tomorrow or next year or something, and perhaps in 50 years' time, people will still be doing.
It's like the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
Or Epstein files. We're going to get promised this stuff for years and never get anything. We've been promised, and not that nobody made any real promises about UFOs or disclosure. I mean, you had Jimmy Carter when he was running saying he was going to and then didn't, and he witnessed a UFO himself. You've had other presidents, Bill Clinton, he had AIDS, and people he said were trying to look into it.
Oh yeah.
I've always, we talked about Spielberg. He had a series called Taken, and it was about 3 different kinds of generations of people. One being the abductee, one being a hybrid, and one family, and one was the family started by a general that controlled the narrative, controlled the secret. They were the secret military organization in a sense, but they were so secret even the military forgot about them. But it was interesting because it went from a father to his son to his daughter. That's why it was secret. It was passed along through the family members who kept it tight and close. And I think if there are those kind of people, they wouldn't be people in the military so much to pass this down, but the big military industrial companies and the people that control and the families related, that might have that information. Beyond congressional preview, that they took it over, the private sector.
I think the problem as well is that there's a lot of disinformation swilling around as well. So with disinformation, that often distracts ufologists and moves them into different areas, and then all the resources are looking at the Serpio story of astronauts going off with the aliens, just like they did in Close Encounters. And, we get all these stories that become headlines and fascinating to ufologists, but then it can be distracting them from other areas of research. I think, like Roswell, if you get a UFO book from the 50s, 60s, early 70s, there's hardly any mention of Roswell.
It wasn't until the 80s.
It's not until later Stanton Friedman and lots of other people jumped on the bandwagon. And then I think that's a problem with UFO stories. They get better over time. So the longer you leave it, the better it gets. And so you might get an initial interest in something. It might be explained or put to one side, and then it's reinvestigated 10 or 20 years later, and suddenly you get new people coming out of the woodwork. And
I mean, you see with Rendlesham. Look at Rendlesham, like how that story has gone so many different ways.
Yeah, I always was a bit skeptical of it, but now it's very difficult to know what really went on, because
I had Nick Redfern on here, who wrote a whole book on Rendlesham, as that it was from the perspective, I would say, that it was all a military psyop by the U.S. government on the soldiers there and all the people. That was all some kind of psyop. I love Nick Redfern. I love the book, but I don't still particularly buy that, But you do seem like there are some people, and I won't say who, that have jumped onto this story and added on. I'm saying, like, were you even there? Sometimes I wonder if some of these things become people's retirement plans. They get to go to UFO conventions and talk and get paid for it, and they're on the circuit. It's just an honest reaction to what I see in the community.
I think another thing with these stories, they get more elaborate, and if they're repeated enough, it just catches on. Often I see things, say, on Facebook about, like the Black Knight satellite or Skinny Bob. I thought these have been debunked loads of times. Yeah, then we come up again, and people say, "Oh, what's this? This is, fantastic, a new discovery." And you think, "Oh,
yeah, I see it on the internet all the time." As an old Art Bell listener, he had many people on, and nothing against Art Bell. Art Bell's like me. I probably had plenty of people on that might have said BS on this show or total frauds. I don't know. I don't judge. I'd let anybody come on. So did Art, but some of those people were definitely frauds. Like it was a total scheme and lie what they were telling you, and then they got debunked. Yeah, and they got debunked. They got debunked decades ago. But then I see them back on the circuit and their story back up again.
I think that's the thing people want to believe, and if you tell them what they want to believe, it doesn't matter what people say. I think years ago, a famous UFO photograph was revealed to be a hoax. The person who took the picture said they'd faked it. But I thought, oh, that's the end of it. But people then came forward and said, oh, he's been pressured into saying he faked it. So then we could still preserve the fact that this UFO was, solid evidence. And I think that's the thing, you can go around in circles with these things, because the more you try and debunk something, the more they think, well, you're just a nasty skeptic and you're just spoiling their fun, you know. So I think that's why these stories keep going on, really, because some people just don't want to have them investigated, but just want to believe them as a story. I suppose that's why a lot of UFO documentaries are really entertainment, because a lot of the experts on them are just good entertainers. You know, they know how to tell a story. Whereas I think the real people that should be on these documentaries have a lot of good research behind them, but they're probably not as articulate, or they're not selling a story that TV producers want. Because if you debunk too many things, then it would undermine the whole industry of having UFO documentaries.
Yeah, they just want to make a show and sell some, get some advertisers, and it's money. It's Hollywood. It is entertainment, and that's what it does come down to.
I think you need a balance, really, of different types of viewpoints, and I think that's what a lot of these documentaries avoid. Years and years ago, when in Britain we only had like 3 or 4 channels, you'd only get a UFO documentary once every 1 to 5 years. And say if a BBC or ITV made a UFO documentary, it would have to present both sides of the argument, pro and con, and whether they're spaceships or not. We always take a kind of simplistic approach, but at least they'd have to tell the side of a story. But usually it's more biased to them being skeptical. But now it's gone the other way. And the majority of UFO documentaries you see on cable or whatever, or satellite, is they're not telling any things that dispute what these people are saying. We're given carte blanche to peddle stories. I was involved with one TV UFO series where they interviewed me and they showed me some footage of something, and I explained it, and they said, we believe that explanation ourselves. But they never used my contribution. They just showed it as believable. And I thought,
they gotta have something to show, Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, it's the same with the ghost hunting TV shows, the Bigfoot hunting TV shows, all that stuff. They got to sensationalize, make things happen. You can't trust it. That's the sad thing. The resources aren't there to really investigate these things the way we should. That's the biggest issue. And eyewitness testimony and videotape testimony. You get it on video, nobody's going to believe it, or it's too grainy if it, to believe. We're stuck in this. Is it real or is it not? Phenomenon. I approach everything as, who the heck am I to know about anything? That's why I'll bring anybody on. They want to talk about their experience. You want to call in? I shamelessly forgot. You guys call in. You want to join this conversation? Forgot to put the phone numbers rolling up there, but 219-230-4444, 260-225-9419, or the phone lines 00J-Bland 00 or J-Bland Paranormal Soup are the Skype IDs. Call in, join this conversation. But you wonder, some people think this is like some coordinated misdirection. All the government's doing this. It's misdirecting. It's applying all this false information. It doesn't need to.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to. We confuse ourselves plenty. And there's plenty of charlatans out there. I'm not going to name names of anybody. Who am I to know? I saw somebody bring up Billy Meyer. I would love to have a guest on Billy Meyer. I've tried. Somebody who's supposedly a representative of that group. I will talk about Billy Meyer, and there's plenty of skeptics that would scream at me for having anybody on to talk about it, and there's plenty of people who still are big believers in Billy Meyer, and I think they both have their reasonable arguments. I'd love to talk about it, But these how old is Billy Meyer? Is he still alive? Yeah, I think he is. What I'm saying? But God, we're still talking about it. Still arguing about it. How old's that case?
Yeah. It's like there's quite a few cases where there's been people making a living out of being a UFO sort of I wouldn't say expert, but that they were promoting a certain story that, that worked in Area 51, or, we've got all this inside knowledge. And even though there's little evidence to support that, people still carry on believing them. You get people on Facebook saying, I still believe him, even when people are criticizing them. They say, well, I still believe. And you think, well, you're never going to shake that belief off them. And even if they said they were a total fraud, they'd just say, we're being forced to say that, So,
well, it's like if you bring up like Area 51, like Bob Lazar. Okay, so I love Stanton Friedman. I got to meet the guy, but I disagree with him on Bob Lazar totally. Because his whole reason for dismissing Bob Lazar is Los Alamos.
Yeah.
And that there's no documentation there, and then his university records are not existing for his actual, background.
Well,
there's evidence he worked at Los Alamos. There is evidence.
Yeah.
Yes, I know it's just a phone book, but there is evidence there. And there's things he said that years later we came to find out is true. I don't know. I'm still up in the air about Bob Lazar, and I love Stanton Friedman, but he wrote off Bob Lazar years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, at the same time, this is something I bring up to you because this is a theory I've had about Bob Lazar and other whistleblowers.
Yeah.
And is this fact. Okay, so same time the government might want to hide the UFO thing or whatever, I think it's also been very useful for them to hide actual projects, or their own experimental craft and just write it off as UFOs or whatever.
Yeah.
At the same time, you want your enemy to think maybe you have some secret guns. Don't mess with us. We got some, like Trump said, we got weapons they couldn't even believe, right? Right? What and Bob Lazar's 80s Cold War, when that was going down. Bob Lazar also was, before he got the job at Area 51 supposedly, was in contact with John Lear. He knew John Lear.
Yeah.
Right? Was already openly talking about UFOs and investigating it. Right?
Yeah.
And there is some conversation. I have listened to many interviews about Bob Lazar and John Lear, and there seems to have been some kind of idea they had about getting him a job there.
Yeah.
To see if he could find out information. You don't think the government might have been ahead of you on this game? And what if you did? And what if you're like, okay, so here's a guy who's totally in the UFO community, and he's trying to sneak a guy in. Let's let him in. Let's show him the magic. Let's give him some lights and magic and show him, like, fake UFOs and all that stuff. And then he goes out, blurts it out, does TV interviews. And for Bob Lazar, it's all real events to him, He's just the dupe. And he goes out and tells people about what he saw there, and boom, now Russia thinks we got secret alien space technology, right? And they better just watch out. I'm not saying that's what I think happened. I'm saying that is a possibility that runs through my mind. Could they put out false information to make your enemy think you have secret big guns? You got weapons of unbelievable, imaginable things,
Exactly. And same with the Majestic 12 documents and everything.
Yeah, there's definitely fakes in those documents. Now, could some of them be real? Linda Moulton Howe, I would love to have her on. I almost did. She's been on top of that for years, and she argues that some of these documents are real, that they can prove that they were real. They were printed on a press, that the letter F or something was pushed up. I don't know. I've always been fascinated with those documents, but are they real?
But I'm certain some of them are downright, well, I don't believe in any of them actually, but some of them are just fake news, because there's one document I read that spoke about the Gallipoli incident that happened in, I think, in 1915, the First World War, where a battalion of British troops was said to have been teleported into a cloud and disappeared. And the story got promoted about 40 years after the event. And I think it was invented really because the actual regiment or battalion that disappeared, the remains of them were actually found several years later. But these at one of these reunion meetings of the troops, I think we came up with this story really, and it turned up in lots of UFO books in the 60s and 70s.
And then it made its way into there.
The Majestic 12 just quotes it as something real. So I think if it was a proper government thing, they'd have known it was a hoax. So whoever wrote up these documents just knew a lot about things in UFO books rather than what, skeptics who had already.
And some people have theorized the whole things are fake because it was meant to throw us completely off from a real government organization. That's what some think. On my opinion, like you said, there's different. I think every alphabet agency has their own little secret black hole department that deals with this, or has their interest in it. It's not one big over organization. And then some of these groups aren't even part of the government. They're part of some Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, or some other military-industrial complex company that's been studying and gathering this material for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the old remote viewing experiments I conducted. Lots of really kind of out there studies are being conducted. And
Menastera goats.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in a way we've got to do that to not fall behind. If there is something in it, we don't want the Russians or the Chinese or any other country.
Oh yeah, it was definitely
well.
That's like who started it first, though. I mean, like I said, like if this was a psyop towards them because we got that stuff, that would force them to start looking into it too. It's at the same time if the stuff if you're say you got secret alien technology, Russia's going to try to get their own if they didn't already have it, I mean, there's stories still going back to World War II of the Nazis having some involvement in secret UFO technology, the wonder weapon.
Yeah, I think over time, though, the Nazi super technology is kind of snowballed in the subject. So even now, even though people say these weren't real projects or anything, a lot of them were just ideas. There's a Horton sort of stealth bomber type thing, but it never actually got built, and it wasn't really that stealthy or very advanced.
But a lot of those scientists, guess where they came? Here. Project Paperclip, our whole NASA program depended on those same scientists that would have been involved in UFO technology.
Yeah.
Von Braun. I mean.
Yeah. But if it did have all this super technology, why aren't we seeing it? How come it's never been used?
Why didn't they win the war?
Yeah. Why didn't we win Vietnam or the fights in the Middle East or anything? So. So in a way, it was pretty rubbish technology, really. It was only useful in terms of building what we already know about. The Saturn V probably kept Werner von Braun busy anyway, and getting to the moon,
But I mean, we haven't gone back, and people are still wondering, like they're still arguing about the technology that got there, the fact that they don't believe we went.
Yeah.
That's where we're at with the moon landing. Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw Interstellar, but Interstellar, like I remember McConaughey's like, "What are you talking about? Telling my daughter we never went to the moon?" Like the narrative changed in that movie or somehow or whatever that we never went to the moon. People didn't believe that anymore. That's how untrustful the government we got. Oh my God. Well, there's a reason we're untrustful. The government's done a lot to lie and scrub things, and there's not been total transparency, even with the new moon landings. I do believe we went to the moon. I do. I think we saw aliens. That's just my perspective.
Well, there's this. It's odd, really, because some people believe we haven't been to the moon. Then there's other people think we've got moon bases and everything there.
That we currently do. Secret space program.
Yeah. So
Serpico.
There's no pleasing some people.
It's a wide range of beliefs here we're dealing with. We didn't go to the moon. The moon's an alien base. That's me. We got bases on there. I don't think we do. I think the aliens. Yeah, I don't think we've gone back because the aliens. We were like, okay, yep, nope, we can't come back here. I don't know. But that's the thing. These are all things that what I do see is happening, and there is more of an awakening and an openness to the conversation. That's where we're at right now. And not everybody is in on this conversation, of course. It's still a lot of us that have an interest in it. But there's more of an open awareness to the general public about the conversation. They're not in it, but they're aware of it. We're getting to that point. It's the moment when things start to get crazy and people are really everywhere. It's at every dinner table. You know what I'm saying? When every John, Joe, Smo out there starts talking about it. I'm waiting for that day. I don't know what event will happen that caused that to happen, but I don't feel we're far from it. And you have a lot of people in the UFO community talking about some big disclosure or some big thing going to happen. I don't think they actually know anything, but I think it's a feeling. I think that they're calling about a feeling that we're all kind of having, that there is something on the horizon that could change this conversation completely. What that would be, I don't know. I honestly don't, because be it besides aliens fully coming out and making open contact with us, I don't know what else can do it, because it ain't going to be a video. It ain't going to be a whistleblower. It ain't going to be any of these things we've continually questioned. It'd have to be literally, and please don't do this, aliens landing on the White House lawn. Don't do that. Don't do that. Bad idea. Don't land on any leaders' lawn. The UK, France, Russia, don't. Go pick some farmer's field, and we'll go from there. I don't know, but just don't go to our leaders. They're dumb. But I'm just saying it's going to take something drastic. My mom, I live in a very open household. My mom, dad, and we talk about all this stuff since I was a kid. My mom always talked about the movie that really influenced her is when the day the Earth stood still. You want to talk about a movie I think that had a lasting impression on people's psychology until Spielberg's Close Encounters was that movie. When the aliens come and say, it's over, we're destroying your planet. That's the main idea, is having this overall presence that's more powerful than us. We are now the prey. And this thing's the predator or the decider or our god that can destroy us with whatever technology, and we can do nothing to stop it. That was the fear that movie instilled, and I think it lasted for a long time and affected a lot of the UFO community and ideas and stuff. And then the idea that humans need to change their ways. We got to go to our last commercial break. Hang out with us, Nigel. We've got about a half hour left to show. Anybody, you want to call in? You got your high strangeness or anything you want to talk about tonight? About your own experiences, paranormal, UFO, whatever, join this conversation. Phone lines will be back open, but wait till after the commercial break if you do want to call in tonight before we end the show. Phone lines are down during commercial breaks, but back up when I come back. I'll let you know. But we're going to go commercial break with our guest tonight. It's Nigel Watson, author of Portraits of Alien Encounters, Revisited, High Strangeness, British UFO Cases. And I realized, hold on, I've had this here. I've not even showed the dang book. Hold on. Here. This is the book. Right here. Why didn't I not show this still? I'm so sorry, Nigel. I should have had this up while we were talking. This is the book. You guys got to read it. I'm like 120 pages in. I'm loving this book, guys. Got to check it out. We're going to go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
I will hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest has been Nigel Watson. He is the author of Portraits of an Alien Encounter Revisited, High Strangeness British UFO Cases. Like I said, I'm really enjoying the book. It really gets into just the pure UFO experience of different people that varies quite a bit. These experiences could go way different than what you typically people don't understand about UFO experiences or paranormal experiences in general and how these kind of blend together. And I've had abductees on the show I've talked to off the show, and they tell me things that they don't generally discuss because it's already hard enough for people to take that they're being abducted, let alone that they're having shadow person experiences or psychokinetic activity or had other stuff happen in the paranormal throughout their childhood. But I think we got to talk about all these things and compare notes and just understand people's perspectives from what they are telling. Let people talk about the whole experience and not try to put it into some box or category of an experience we think it is. I know it's a lot of perspective, I guess, for investigators on this, and I truly enjoying Nigel's book because these cases are. He's not putting any perspective on it. He's giving you what they experience, what they say they experience. And you know, you can research, you can try to debunk what people experience. That's perfect. That's fine. But we got to talk about it. People got to be able to talk about these experiences, and that's what I love about this book tonight. And you can talk too. We got a little bit of time left. You want to call on the show? Phone lines are now open. Join the conversation. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you, Nigel, for staying with us here this early in the morning for you. Yes, this is your book, Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited. And this, you originally wrote, what was the original book written?
Yes, the original one came out in 1990, and it was already looking at cases that are about 10 years old. So in a way, it was a historical document even by 1990. But I think I just felt it was about time I kind of revisited these cases and updated them. And also, I've taken out a few chapters from the original book because I felt didn't really add anything to some of these stories. And I've added some new cases in that kind of fit in nicely with the older cases. And I've also added quite a few of the new theories about false memories and fantasy proneness and sleep paralysis. But I've not really gone into great detail about that. I've just put them there as alternative explanations and different ways of looking at these cases. I've also added a bit of information about archives that contained a lot of information about British cases. And I've added a bibliography of some of the major books about British UFO cases. So that if people want to investigate the wider context of the cases I investigated, they can just look at these other books. I'll look at the archives. You know, some of the archives are online as well. But otherwise, you know, I'd love to write a kind of concise history of British ufology, but I think it's a bit beyond my scope. And somebody like John Anderson has done something like that, where he's collected all documents about British cases, and I've got a piece about his archives in the book. And so another thing is there's one particular chapter of my book that featured an alien encounter that involved sort of close encounter of a third kind, and then they started having psychic messages. But I've been told it was a hoax, and so some people still think it was genuine, but I think the main consensus is it was a hoax, which is a bit disappointing, really, because it kind of undermines the trust investigators have had with
Yeah.
And
They're not the only ones. I mean, I could think of a number of cases that we know now, years later, are hoaxes, but a lot of people trusted these people.
Yeah. But I think with most of the people I've spoken to in this book are genuine, and but you've always got to look out for hoaxes, really. But that's just part of the old UFO business, really.
Sadly, it is.
Yeah, and you could argue why are people hoaxing? What other motives? Why ever use UFOs to hoax things? Like you were saying about government disinformation. You could create hoaxes to distract people from other events, but people on an individual level might just do a hoax, just for self-gratification and just to pull the wool over, investigators' eyes. And I think it's a bit sad, really, that people resort to that because, like I say, it does destroy the bond of trust people have with other people, and especially when it involves experiences that are quite beyond the normal range of things. And so in a way, I've filtered that out of a book and just put in some new cases, and I think it works better than it did before. Yeah.
I was to say, it's hard to let go of these. Some of these cases become mythic and folklorish in the UFO community, become the standstill for ideas and concepts people have about what they think we're dealing with, and then you all falls apart when you find out it was complete bullshit. Like complete hoax, right? Why people do these things, I don't know. Why there are people who are major name UFO investigators who still are giving stuff out or showing stuff that I can't trust because I know you showed this and this and this that was complete bullcrap. But yet somehow you still have a name in the community. Somehow you yet still get to present stuff that takes up a majority of the conversation every time you present it. I'm not naming names, Hami Musa.
And we're not to question it, but yet we have to dig through and try to figure out, okay, this wasn't right before, that wasn't right. This could be right. Like, how do you decide?
Right. I mean, you're a bad UFO journalist, so you presented a lot of crap. But hey, you might trip upon something that's real. I can accept that.
That's not a credible resource. That's a hit or miss.
But that's the problem. I can't trust anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something else that's cropped up is that in recent years, a few people have written UFO books, but have had a crash course in ufology. The publisher's given them a contract to write a book about UFO. So what they've done is got hold of all the other UFO books, repeated the same crap from those books without any sense of analysis. And also I notice a lot of them seem to just refer to books or perhaps some web resources. But we've never looked at all the facts of the magazines. There's massive archives of the publications that that detail these cases far better than any book. And most books are there because publishers know it will sell. So most UFO books aren't textbooks. They're books, as a form of entertainment, really. Even John Keel's books, the Mothman Prophecies, it's got a storyline and a drive to it. And, that's what makes it readable. But it also means it's not really a textbook, so you should take everything with a pinch of salt, really. But
I agree. Even with John Keel, and I'm a huge fan of John Keel, but I do take everything he wrote as a pinch of salt, with a pinch of salt. And I understand what I'm getting when I get John Keel, but I still love him. I understand that with John Keel, but the problem is with the media and with the narrative and everything happening is these things grow lives of their own, even after they're debunked, and that's the problem. And you see stuff. I see stuff all the time regurgitate. I'm like, dude, that was debunked so long ago, and now it's back on the internet circling around again, and it's something new.
It's like I got one book to review, and it says UAP means unidentified aerial phenomenon, and it doesn't. It's sort of like you couldn't even get the acronym right. And I think also in the same book, he mentions a case. I can't remember which one now, but he mentions it, and then he says, "Oh, it was probably a hoax." then at the end of a book, is presenting it as evidence of his theory he's putting forward. I thought, oh, has he forgotten what he wrote in the first
He
part?
forgot that it was a hoax, or he let AI write it. I mean, how many of these books are just being written by AI? Let's just be serious, you know?
Yeah, that might be a factor in it as well.
Yeah, that's AI is part of that conversation now. Like I said, we can't believe anything we see with our eyes on video.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. You don't know. It could be recorded. Now in your books and everything, your theme, it could just all be written by Skynet, an AI system.
Yeah.
Not even a real author who did any research. It just grabs from the internet and pulls and regurgitates crap.
So, all these things cloud any proper investigation, really, or a proper view on the subject. And I think it's important that we are critical, and that I think, in a way, critics or debunkers even do a good service to ufology, because I think if you just let a lot of these UFO researchers or whatever, if you let them run loose, they're just publishing all sorts of stories that nobody's going to dispute. And I think you have to have a different look at these things, because often we're just promoting things, just for the sake of promoting them, rather than to actually present the facts. And it's quite disturbing, really. And like you say, with AI and the internet in general, there's so much stuff out there, and it just gets repeated, and the stories sort of escalate as well when other characters come in and add more to the story, until you lose any sense of what happened in the first place. That certainly happened with Rendlesham, and with Roswell. We had the old saga of the Roswell slides, where this sort of secret group had spent 2 years analysing these slides and saying they were, genuine pictures of an alien body. And then within 2 days, people on the internet had worked out it was a mummy.
Hammy-san!
Yeah.
I've heard he's a really nice guy. I've had people on the show that know him and say he's really nice. I'm sure he is, but he sucks. I'm sorry. It's like we have those whole the sphere in Bolivia or Peru or something like that they're covering right now, and it's just can I believe any? I got great video of this thing landing, and they supposedly have the sphere, but as soon as I see Stephen Greer and Jaime Maussan and these people involved, I'm like, I'm sorry, when they push bull crap, why do I believe anything else they have? But again, it is possible that somebody that's pushed bull crap stumbles upon something real, though. So I still have to pay attention to them. That's the crux of it.
I think another problem is that these people play to people say, oh, you got to be open-minded, you can't be judgmental, and you can't. But I think you have to be judgmental when it's a strange subject like this. I think you got to be more judgmental than something in sort of normal life, because you've got something to measure things by. But with ufology, if you're too open-minded, you allow lots of ideas in without you really filtering them or looking at them in a proper context. And I think there's quite a lot of researchers out there that you've got to dig around for, who've done some amazing work on looking at old cases and explaining them. In particular, only a few days ago, there was somebody's published a report on a case that occurred several years ago in Wales, where near a small village, a farmer found what he called UFO fragments scattered.
I think I read about this. Yeah.
Field, and that the Ministry of Defence or something came and collected it all, but he managed to save some fragments, and a ufologist got hold of these fragments, but he was frightened that the government would get hold of these fragments, so he put them into key fobs, and he started selling them to people because he thought if he sold these key fobs with the fragments in, but the government wouldn't be able to get rid of all this stuff.
That's okay.
And also, people sent this stuff off for analysis, but all these readings come back to say it was terrestrial material of some sort. Well, anyway, that's how the situation was. And whenever you get a lab analysis, it never really seems to pin down what something was. There's all these different chemicals that things.
Well, it was, would we reckon? I mean, there are certain things they say they could find that recognize that something's not from this earth, an alien or whatever. Somebody mentioned Art's parts. Those supposedly ended up in Bigelow's hands. And that we recognize them. I mean, they could build the same stuff we build here. It could look just like it's from Earth. I don't know.
But somebody that's followed up this research, and he looked at newspapers for the period when that so-called UFO crash happened, and he found out a United States jet had lost part of its wing in that area, and that's what had been recovered. Not a UFO fragment. Right. And they kind of covered it up, but they didn't have to cover it up that well because it wasn't that well publicized. But he did this research and he contacted the old RAF base, and they actually were able to tell him exactly the serial number of the aircraft. And that he also did further research and found that these fragments were exactly like the honeycomb structure that's in that type of jet. So it seems like that's what the UFO crash was. But it's taken something like 40 years to come to that. And it's only because that person bothered to look back in the newspaper archives and find a report from a different newspaper than
we had something similar to that too in the U.S. just recently. What was it? They finally analyzed some stuff that was thought to be parts from an alien craft and found that it was most likely produced here, but not something part of like a jet, but something that could have been an experimental, but it was produced here.
Yeah.
And it's of course in a testing range where they would have had a crash vehicle. What was that? I can't remember. I mean, like I said, Art's parts, those went to supposedly Bigelow. Right?
Was that
Linda Moulton Howe said that. And then Bigelow, somehow later on, you find out from To the Stars with, what's his name from Blink 182. And then they did this whole big thing where they had alien materials, right? And they got them from Bigelow. Well, where did Bigelow get them? I think he got them from Art Bell. He got them from Moulton Howe, who got it from Art Bell, and he got no credit. And what happened with those materials?
That's the thing. Most of these materials are pretty rubbish. There's also that one being promoted in the book called Trinity, and that was obviously some terrestrial object. I forget what it was now, but it was pinned down to be something very mundane. I think that's the thing. If you present certain fragments or information online, people can back it down and look it up and analyze it. So it's pretty good having the internet, with having so many people being able to look up these things. But these sort of recovered fragments or whatever of UFOs take on a kind of symbolic power, don't they? It's almost like saintly relics or something. And like that person, was selling them off in key fobs and selling glossy pictures of
well, again, at this point, it goes back to, again, one of my favorite Spielberg things is this series Taken. The family that controlled the secret, their prized possession, the grandfather passed down to the son, who passed down to his daughter, was a Roswell piece of the craft from Roswell, an alien artifact that had, it is like a theme through the whole series. You know that this is the thing that they got. That's their powers. This artifact that they kept secret.
All right.
You know, like if you had the material, they could totally prove that. Maybe that would be it to prove it. This is alien. Scientists all agree. You know, but are we going to ever get something like that? I doubt it.
Yeah, somebody put forward the idea that you should analyze relics in French churches, because some of these so-called relics might be actually of recovered alien spacecraft.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, that's a very interesting idea. I mean, what? Yeah. I mean, that's the possibility. They think about the what's that? I mean, it's a meteorite, isn't it, in the Dome of the Rock? You know, I mean, they you know, our ancient ancestors would find things that fell from space and think it's. I mean, look at the Tutankhamun's dagger was made from meteorite.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, so that's a good idea, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's different anyway, and it also puts the churches and ley lines back into play, really. But I think that's the thing, though. Just a little bit of archive research can often track things down. It's funny. I had this really amazing coincidence when I had the Scunthorpe UFO Research Society, and I did a bit of newspaper research and found this report from 1955 or something. And it said these men leaving a pub had seen a bottle-shaped UFO in the sky. And that very same day, I went to the UFO meeting and I went to the bar, and these one or two blokes were saying, "Oh yeah, we told the newspaper about seeing a bottle-shaped thing in the sky." And I thought the biggest mystery were that it was such a big coincidence. You know, I'd probably been the first one to go to the newspaper office and look that up, and they confessed to that to me, unfettered by me, really. And it's also a warning sign if you get people saying they've seen something like a bottle or something like that, and they're leaving a pub. You know, there's that old thing where they've got some, tongue in cheek, really, and you get that a lot.
I don't get why people fake stuff, though. I'll never understand the mentality of people. I'm not a prankster or jokester, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there are people that are. I have plenty of cases of debunked that. People come out, yeah, that was me. I was the jerk that did that, left the footprints in the sand, or made the fake UFO. I mean, people will do it. It is very much so common. Believe it. There's somebody wants to fake something, somebody's going to fake something.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people that have personality.
Yeah. Also, that was a really simple one. All we did was ring the newspaper up and we got a few column inches. But I suppose if anyone put the mind to it, we could do quite complex hoaxes. You know, like
I mean, I'll just call it out now. I mean, one of my favorite ones when I was as an Art Bell fan, I would listen to interview, and he tells a super compelling story. And he had pictures and video to go with it, and it seemed so super interesting. And like I said, tells a very compelling emotional story. Is Dr. Jonathan Reed? And guess what? His name's not Jonathan Reed. He's not a doctor. And just look into that one, con artist. And the whole story, you guess it, bull. But he's still out there touring around.
Right, yeah. I think another trick is that people give a story and then they'll say, 10 other witnesses saw it, and then everyone's running around saying, where's all these, we'll say, 10 other people saw it. But we think, who are these 10 people? I think I saw a UFO case recently. The Manhattan transfer case that Bud Hopkins promoted, where it said Linda Napolino was seen, levitated into the sky.
Right, this is a famous one.
And though the documentary says 23 people witnessed it, but Tim Primty in his Sunlight newsletter pinned it down to there being only about 4 viable witnesses. All the others didn't seem to exist or came forward.
That's what I've found about it years ago.
You know, yeah.
This was on our bell. I mean, this was talked about, and this, you know, and trying to find any information or who the witnesses were, it was all very vague.
Yeah.
And there was never anything to pinpoint down on the story. That documentary is like the closest I've seen to anything kind of pinpointed a little bit down, and they still didn't. You know, it's there's a lot of questions to that. Is that just, you know, I believe it could have happened. Maybe it did. But you think in a big city and that many witnesses, we'd have a lot more than actually 4. And I don't know what the other 23 are, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the other thing. These things go around. We talk about it. I believe these things are possible. I am not a skeptic. But we have to ask the questions. And we have to have the facts. And we have to have the witnesses. And we have to really get down to what is true.
Yeah. I think another
except the things that aren't.
Yeah. Another thing is that people came out with bland statements to say, you know, we've investigated like 100 abduction cases or something like that. They're thinking, where did we get the time to do all that investigating? I think what we really mean is we've got 400 letters from people saying we've been abducted, which is different from investigating 400 people. And that's another thing with the subject, really, that a lot of sort of bland statements are made that sound great, but when you start analysing them, you know, they don't really hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah, yeah. The sad thing is I think there are a lot of people that have experienced the abduction phenomenon, go through it, and they're discouraged from talking about it when things get too crazy. With you know, like, and I'm not saying that the experience is being crazy. I'm talking about with people that are promoting it and using it to sell themselves or something and turn it crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I think the experiences can be kind of crazy to the people that don't understand it. You know, these experiences can be quite, you know, not fit into a normal box of what we perceive from Hollywood's idea of alien abduction. You know, there's a lot of levels to alien abduction. And I again, I think the biggest thing people have to do is be able to feel free enough to open enough to talk about it. And right now, that's not happening with the disclosure movement with our government. They're not even touching upon the alien abduction thing. I'm interested if that ever enters the conscious conversation, and you know, on the everyday dinner table subject conversation, I guess. Nigel, it's been an honor to have you on the show.
Okay.
Any last information you want to get out to the audience before we go?
No, I've just been enjoying being on this show, and that. You know, I hope 1 or 2 people might actually buy my book. I suppose.
I hope so. I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to get into these other cases in there. I mean, there's stuff in there you have about Leprechaun, you know, like how that blew up, like Leprechaun flap, kind of. There's interesting things in here. It goes a lot deeper than just the alien encounters. It's a plethora of perspectives. I'm enjoying really much so this book. So definitely check it out. Portraits of an Alien Encounter Revisited by Nigel Watson. You can find it on Amazon. Jamie's been sharing the links in the thing. This is from 6 books. Thank you, Gavin Davies, for getting me Nigel here. Nigel, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let me know if you got any other future books you ever want to come on the show. I'd love to have you back on, Nigel.
Thank you.
All right, that's it, guys. Next Sunday, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a show. I got to work early on Monday, so I might not next Sunday. I hate not doing a show again. I'm so sorry. We'll see. I might be able to pull it off, but I don't have a guess. If I do, it'll be just open lines, and we'll do some weird news and all that, World Wide Web of weird. We'll see. But otherwise, we'll be back the following week for sure. We got guests booked up for the next month or 2, and a lot more coming to you guys. Thanks for checking it out. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Don't forget to tell your friends about Paranormal Soup, where Weird happens live every Sunday night, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time. And thank you to our YouTube channel members and Patreons. Your donations do help pay the bills for this show. And if you are interested, I am going to try to do more for our YouTube channel members. I got 4 of you, I think. And our Patreons. Got like 13 of you. I love you all. I will try to do some more for you guys here, exclusively to you here in the next couple months. And if you want to be interested in helping this channel, become a YouTube channel member or a Patreon, and you will have some exclusive access. That's it, guys. See you either next Sunday or the following. Have a great night. See you in a couple weeks.